number one. Shane Van Gisbergen comes in Portland.
What the heck is a quad lock?
Watch this to find out. Whether you're in the car, on the bike, on the water, in the air, your phone is an important tool. Keep it secure with Quad Lock.
I remember it like yesterday at Homebush. My mum come to the track. She would never come to the racetrack on a Saturday, you know. She's there, and it was just this expectation gets put on you. It does affect you as an athlete and as a driver.
Oh no! He's in the fence! The boat's in the fence! They're all in the fence! Oh, unbelievable!
Sound check.
Sound check.
All right, back episode 22 now for Apex Hunters United. We're here doing just a short little preview of the Adelaide 500 coming up. We've got a special guest who's returned. We've kept him on the show from the previous episode where we debriefed a bit of Martinsville and discussed some NASCAR action. We've got Shane Van Gisbergen. Welcome, welcome back. We've stayed on, but good to still have you here. Scene continues, mate.
Thank you. Good to be here.
You need to change shirts, mate, so we can pretend it's a different day. Go get another hoodie.
I'm the same. I'm still sitting here like a super fan in 88.
Yeah, I need to get some SVG gear.
I've shut the door down, change the background.
That's it.
This has got to be, I was just thinking, this can't be a good omen, actually. I'm sitting here wearing an 88 shirt, pre-briefing the Adelaide 500 where it's duking it out between 87 and 88. This is Shane's shirt for next year. Yeah. Shannon's mum got this for me. She went over to the States and brought it back. Is it for you or
Shannon? Because it looks small on you, actually.
It is small. No, I've just bulked up, you know.
Yeah, right.
So Adelaide, we've got your old team duking it out. It's been, have you kept tabs on it? Oh, I think you have. You've kept tabs on a bit of the season throughout the year when you've got your spare time there. What have you thought of the performance from your old team? And I wrapped up Teams Championship pretty early, but I think Will's done a good job settling into the new team, and Brock's obviously still punching away there, doing a fantastic job as well.
Yeah, I try and still watch as much as I can. You know, I spoke to Scotty about it at the start of the year and all through this year. You know, it's hard to switch off from something you've watched all your life. So, you know, I was a supercar driver in V8s for 16 years or something. You know, you can't just switch it off. I've still got a lot of friends and as drivers and teams and fans and stuff, you know, so you can't switch off from that. Yeah, he said he watched it a lot for his first year and then you kind of fade away. So, yeah, this year I've watched as much as I could and it's been cool to watch. It reminds me a lot of myself in 2016. Joining, you know, when Will Brown, he's kind of been in it for a few years, and then you finally get the top team, and it's your shot, you know, and he's done really well. It's a great bunch of guys on that 97 or 87 crew it is now. It's kind of pretty much the same guys, and he's done an amazing job. And yeah, it reminds me going into Homebush in 2016, I had like 160 or 170 point lead on Jamie, you know, the established team driver, and you go to that race with over a race with points buffer, but yeah, he's in a tough spot, or I found myself in a tough spot that weekend, and you know, he's just got to go there and do his thing and remember why he's in that position and drive like he has all year and wrap it up on the Saturday. You know, it's you know, Brock's done amazing and had some unlucky moments, and same with Chaz and Cam, and Will's been there with the fewest mistakes. He deserves to be there, and he's done an awesome job. I think, you know, he made an error. Was it Saturday at Gold Coast? But I think otherwise his year's been exceptional. Is
that hard to do, mate? To roll in, because we've both never been in that position, to roll in fighting for a championship, but having such a buffer. Is it hard to keep your foot on the gas, or like how did you find that? Especially a place like Newcastle, which is, you know, it's a hardcore street track.
16 would have been Homebush.
Oh, so was it Homebush, was it?
Homebush.
Sorry, well, Homebush,
Yeah.
even harder in my personal opinion. So, I mean, you can easily fuck a car there. Like, was that really hard?
Put it politely. Actually, if I rewind a bit, my pressure weekend was Pukekohe, which was the week before Homebush. And, Jamie and I were pretty close on points there, and I knew I think there was 4 races that weekend, and I think we raced against each other in that weekend, Scotty.
Yeah, we did. I qualified second. You polled it. I qualified second by fuck all.
And Winterbottom won that race. Yeah, but you know, that weekend to me set up my year, but it was a lot of pressure, and Jamie was always very good at Pukekohe, and I felt like I drove really good there, but he spun me out actually in one of the races, and got a penalty, and that's what pretty much took all the pressure off. But then I went to Homebush, and I was, as I said, 160, 170 points. It was over a race, and I started the race, and I just drove like, I'd never ever driven like that before because I'd never been in that position. I was nervous as shit, just like driving really tight, making tense mistakes, and end up going for this pass at the end of that. I forget the corner, the bumpy back straight, the big braking.
The left
into the left, right.
Left around the train line.
Yeah. And like my car was amazing. And I caught Mark Winterbottom, went to pass him because his tyres had gone off. And I went for this half-ass move. And like I was in the gap and he was giving me room. And I went, oh shit, I'm not far enough in. And I kind of panic braked, pinched the front and spun him out. And then, wrecked himself, wrecked my race, got a drive through, and I was at the back. And I was just, I was panicking in that moment. And, I remember just like going, like, what the F are you doing? Let's get on with this. And I caught some guy, there was some guy in an Erebus car. I remember catching him, and he was like, he couldn't catch up with the train. He was a fill-in driver, and he blocked me for like last. And I just got so angry and just shipped him. And then it was on. And, just drove crazy back to, I think I got back to third and had this battle with James for the podium. And, just took that moment with Mark to wake myself up, I guess. The pressure got to me that day, and I almost threw it away, and I had Chippy with me on the radio. He was really good and got me back in it. And then Chippy was panicking at the end because JC was blocking like anything for third, and I was just having fun in the battle. I was back to driving like myself. But anyway, back to it for Will. He's got over that race buffer. He's just got to race normal on the Saturday and stay out of trouble and not get caught up in the championship stuff. But it's easy to say, but when it's your life's work, it's your life's dream, it's your life's ambition, it means everything to you. It's very hard to handle that pressure, but he's a great kid with great people around him. I'm sure he'd be fine, but interesting to see how it goes, because Brock, knowing how Brock is, he won't give a shit. He'll be flat out doing his own thing, trying to be up the front, and it'll put some pressure on. So interesting to see how it'll be.
Isn't it funny? You get to the end of a season and you got this one weekend with, it's almost the if you take it out of context, it's the weekend with the least pressure he will have had all season, because you never go into a weekend with that big of a buffer, for instance. Every weekend equals the same amount of points, and it contributes to the championship equally. But it's wild to think that last event, and I think that's what you've got to remind yourself. You said it really well earlier, where I think Will needs to just remind himself that there's a reason he's getting into this event with a 180-point lead, and just try and do what he does best, and do his thing, because it does, I can only imagine it must completely change your perspective on what that one weekend means, as opposed to the one that was 4 weekends ago. It equally means the same, but for some reason this last one's going to mean so much more.
I think like SVG...
All you've got to score is 120 points. It sounds easy, but it's not, If something goes wrong on that first day, suddenly you're really under pressure, and you got guys like Brody, Cam Waters, Chaz Mossett. They don't give a shit about your championship, and they'll stick it in on you for no reason, because they know that you'll drive like your grandma trying to score your points. So it's a fine line.
Yeah, I think, as SVG was saying too, it's your whole life's work to that point for your first championship. You think you're like every friggin' go-kart race, every night you spent in the shed with your old man, sparring karts and all that shit and driving all over the country, it all like comes down to that one weekend, like all that hard work. I think that's, sort of sounds like what you're saying, mate, like all that pressure just piles on of 20 years of having a crack, or 15 years of all the hard work that your parents and everything and yourself and all that shit, and then it's like, fuck, I've got to deliver, like that would be a lot.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Like I remember it like yesterday at Homebush, my mum come to the track on a Saturday. Like she would come to Sydney with Dad and go shopping. She would never come to the racetrack on a Saturday, and she's there. And my friend Simon Evans come over for a race. He never comes to a race, And it was just this expectation gets put on you, and you don't think about it, but it's in your subconscious, It it does affect you as an athlete and as a driver. So yeah, it's a tough moment. Like I'd worked that was my dream to be a V8 Supercar champion. So yeah, we'll be in the same spot.
How does it change your motivation after you achieve it? You know, once you've ticked that bucket list item, which you've worked forever to do, I imagine it could go either way. It could go one or two. You know, you finish it, you win it, and you go, I want to do it again, and you put everything back into it. Or there's a period of time where you just want to sit back and enjoy it because this world just keeps moving so fast. Round one comes around and it's reset. You didn't run number one because I remember you saying everyone starts round one with the same points. We're all, you know, last year I won, this year I'm 97. Is it? Do you just hit reset and go, okay, now it's back, or is there a period of time where it did take you to get some motivation back again, or what's that like when you do tick that bucket list?
So in 2016, Nico Rosberg won the World Championship for the first time. Finally beat Lewis Hamilton. Finally was the world champion. Then he retired, and you can see why he did that. Like it's, you know, and it never crossed my mind, but I'm like, shit, you know, you put so much effort, so much energy, and then you got to go do it again in 3 months. Yeah. So you can see why he did it, you know, and it's an interesting thing. But yeah, I just remember the feeling that night. You know, it's like winning a Bathurst or winning a championship. That feeling that night, how much it means to all the people who are around you, you know, supporting you, whether it's your family, team members, fans. It's it's an awesome feeling and something you always want to achieve it again. Like it doesn't get old. Like every championship to me and every Bathurst meant the same. Like it was such a cool feeling. It's you've got to, for me, as I said, it doesn't get old, and I found it pretty easy to get that motivation to be at Adelaide the next year and have a proper crack at it. Like it's pretty cool.
How much, one quick question was just spurred to mind. How much thought do you put into your burnouts? Because someone did ask a question. Someone asked a question last week. Can you find out if Cam Waters puts thought into his burnouts? Because I actually think he never gets credit. You kind of stole the show for everyone that wants to do a burnout now. But I reckon Cam Waters does a pretty decent burnout. Yeah. And someone said, can you find out how much he thinks about or plans for his burnouts? Do you ever think about it?
So the only one I've ever thought about was Adelaide, the last championship. But every other one I just wing it. And, you know, Russell Ingall actually stuffed it for everyone when he got out of the car and, you know, they banned that. But he did the best burnout ever.
He had his helmet off too.
That was so good.
He took his helmet. Well, they used to do that, remember? You know, there's that classic footage of Lounsey at Oran Park with his helmet off. They used to do that until Russell got out of the car and with no helmet. And, you know, they banned that. But yeah, I remember Adelaide, we'd already won the championship, and I remember speaking with my mechanic, Jared. I'm like, what do we do? We got to do something to, you know, try and up it. And he come up with the boot on the throttle idea, and I was just like, I think it'll work. Hopefully the car stays there. And then I made sure I knew where the kill switch was. I made sure I knew where the kill switch was on the outside of the car. Yeah. It was on the roof, and it started moving, and I could dive for it. But I first took my boot off, and I think you can hear it. I put my boot off, wedged it between the brake and the throttle, and it's hard on the limiter. Oh shit! And I've tried to readjust it, and then I've just got it above idle and got out. But yeah, that was the only one I've probably put thought into. The rest of them, you just in the moment you just wing it. And
it almost would have been
loose, which is pretty awesome.
Almost would have been better to see you dive down the windscreen and flick the master off.
Oh, 100%. It starts taking off down the track. Shane's, fuck, where is it? Yeah.
Imagine if you miss it and the thing just fires off down the road.
Yeah, exactly. I liked Brody's actually where it was pot luck. There's no way there's skill in that where he spun and nearly cleaned up the trophy.
Oh, dude, that was a fuck up. He was close to knocking that thing up.
That was so good. Again, but if he cleaned that up.
It would have been better if he cleaned it up, I reckon.
At that point, he owns that trophy.
Actually, when I went there, I was planning to do a couple around the trophy, and I think I did one or half a lap, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to hit this thing, so I got away from it. Yeah,
I've seen
he did a pretty good job not whacking.
I have seen that trophy go through some pretty tough periods on Sunday nights after the championship has been sealed. So it's robust, is what we could say. I don't know that it would break if it hit the deck because it's been tried and tested many a time.
I definitely did not put chicken nuggets.
I thought that was an old one to put chicken nuggets in it, but
That's an NBA thing, isn't it? Isn't that guy
is it?
Luca or whatever that?
Luka Doncic.
Yeah, didn't he do chicken? Is that where that came from? I know he did that with the NBA Cup or something. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure there was more in it. Nuggets were in it at the end of the night, which is probably social media friendly.
Right, I'd just rather drink a beer out of it. I think, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, the championship fit 2.5 Coronas in it, but the Brocky Trophy fit a few more.
Yeah, that's good to know. 2.5's not a lot.
Yeah.
When you're sharing it with the crew, that goes
That's not
pretty
a lot.
quick.
Yeah, but you can scull 2.5.
Can you?
Well, I could. You probably couldn't.
I don't know why. I'm not. I'm offended, but I'm pretty sure I couldn't sell
Actually,
two
do you
and a
know,
half Coronas.
you need to put up that, to get Scotty back for him putting up that video of you need to get that photo of us at Adelaide and we've all just got beer down the front of our shirts. I'm in a grey shirt. I'm covered in Coronas. You're there. I think Toby was
My
with you.
shirt's
You're
on,
covered in Coronas. Shane, we're all just covered in beer.
Oh, it's after Adelaide where that downstairs place where your feet stick to the floor.
Yeah, I missed my flight because of that.
Anyway, we should get into the format.
We digress.
We digress. We should get into the format because it's historical Adelaide 500, 250 Ks both days.
Yeah.
I still don't understand why they throw in a practice session on Saturday morning. So they do qualifying, then they get another on Friday night. They get qualifying, then they start Saturday with another 30-minute practice session. Oh, sorry.
Well, it's a carby session, mate.
Yeah, I don't know why we need a carby session still in supercars. I reckon, just roll out and go straight into the top 10 shootout and end the race. But you've won the race a few times. I think you've won it 5 times, which I actually doubted. I'm like, I don't remember you in it 5 times.
Is that many?
Cool.
Well, you've been racing supercars for fucking 20 years, so you probably did.
But what's the hardest thing about trying to? What's the hardest thing to win Adelaide 500?
Well, it's just backing it up the next day. It's actually easier now at the end of the season. You always used to be really tough at the start of the season when you weren't race fit, But yeah, end of the year it's a little bit easier. But 250 Ks each day, it's a tough one. Trying to rehydrate and make sure you're right for the next day. Try and make your car better. It's a tough track. What tire are they on this time?
I don't know.
We're asking questions.
We're not ideal with this. We're 2 weeks out. Yeah. I don't know.
2 weeks out. Yeah.
Yeah, we're pre-briefing, but not in the details. We don't get caught up in the details.
Yeah, it's a tough race. I remember it being very hard to pass in the car last year. Like you just get so much heat soak, the brakes fade, so aero tight through turn 8. And it was very, very difficult to pass, and so qualifying is going to be important. And yeah, just minimising the mistakes. Adelaide gets, especially when it's a long green flag run, it gets a lot of marbles, and you've got to be so precise everywhere through the turn 4, 5, 6, through the S's, up through the staircase, and then turn 8. Like the line is so narrow. I always used to make sure I'd try and clip that curb, even though it wasn't the fastest way, just so I had some margin not to be in the marbles and give it away. Like it's a very, very tough track to put all the laps together. But it seems like now everyone just does the same thing with the short fuel at the first stop and then long one at the end. So it's very hard to make that long first stop work anymore because the cars seem to be a little bit more weight affected. It did work for Cam, I think, at Surfers on the Sunday, but really you just see everyone kind of do the same thing. So I think qualifying is probably the most important, and I've really found qualifying good to watch this year.
Yeah.
On the timing, it's very, very close. The margins are quite small. I think it's going to be a good, if you qualify well, you're going to race well there and try and get up front and go, keep the tyres cool and be on it.
I imagine it will be the soft tyre because normally they only go the harder of the compounds just because of tracks like Bathurst where, they're at risk or the deg's massive. So I'm assuming it will be the soft. And that's where you do start. Like turn 8 becomes a real tricky corner, especially when you start getting fatigued at the end of the day or there's a restart and you get a little bit of aero wash.
Is that with marbles?
The marbles, because of the soft, it becomes one line. Of course, turn 8's always one line, but one line means you get a foot wide or you don't pick up that apex curb and you can be in real trouble through turn 8 and your day's done. Yeah. But equally, it makes turn 9 a really good passing opportunity later in the day because you can start to get runs on people out of there. But I actually had a memory. I once 2014, I think it was, or maybe it would have been 14. Shane turned me around. I was on for like my best result at Adelaide. I've never had a great run at Adelaide. I've had shit luck. I've poled it and qualified in the front row and just never had a good one. Anyway, Shane, one year, do you remember this? You spun me around. I was in the.
Yeah, I caught you from like.
He would have deserved
Caught
it.
you from way back. No, he didn't deserve it, but I remember catching him from miles back. He was going well, but we're in the middle of the nowhere, not really racing each other. I think we might have been off strategy. I can't remember, but he took this wide line into turn 9 and he thought he was letting me go, and I sort of half committed. Ended up spinning each other round, but yeah, if we just let each other pass and carried on with our days, we would have got a good result, but
it was where
A couple of blokes just hunting some apexes down at turn 9.
But it was where I like chat about that one because I learned a lot that day because you got the penalty for it. But personally, I remember thinking, fans might see us in races, you indicate to let someone go sometimes. Like we've all done that at a point where it's not your race and you're an alternate strategy.
You got fried for that in Newey, didn't you?
In Newcastle, I did, big time. But sometimes you'll let someone go and they think it's because you just you're soft or whatever. But what it is at that point, that would have been my smartest move. We were off strategy. We were 4th or 5th, but there was a big gap behind in front. And I didn't know you were on fresh, and you caught me like 1 second a lap or more. And I tried to hold him back. And I remember in hindsight thinking, because I got stuck on the inside curb, it was a fucking disaster. Like I was beached and I went to last. Yep. And
I remember it.
I remember thinking Shane got the penalty, but this is where fans might not realise when we let someone go sometimes, it's because you might get them back later in the race or it's not your fight that day. And you probably would have won the race. I think that year you were like blazing. And it ruined my day.
Yeah.
And you mature a lot in those. Like I hate that happened and I wish it didn't because it still would have been a very good, that's probably my best result actually at Adelaide. You took away from me there. But it is definitely like as a driver, you learn a lot at tracks like that because they're the places that normally you don't just get bumped and run wide or have a spin. Any other track, I would have rejoined in 6th. Would have had a spin, rejoined 6th, you got to drive through.
Yeah, it costs you everything.
Adelaide and those places, you learn the most through some of the shittest periods. But I think that place is unique. I don't know what it is for me, whether it's because of my home event. I've never had
bit of pressure, mate.
Maybe we talk about like that's one that meant the most to me, and I never had a good result there. But some bad luck. Like last year, Cam and I were like 14 seconds ahead, and we had year before last, we had the safety car come with the fuel drop. We couldn't get the minimum drop in. And we both went back to like 12th or something like that. And that's when Chaz and Percat got the 1-2.
Actually, the year you polled it in the Penske rig, there was a fuel drama then because that's when Percat got the win, right? You and Fabs were 2nd, 3rd, but something happened?
That was the wet race. That was the minimum drop.
Yeah, what happened with that? That was a minimum drop thing, wasn't
minimum drop, which is ridiculous. But going back to your point, I think, Shane, with
he wants to flush over that.
I don't know why I bring up so many bad times.
I remember that race was a joke. No one could fit the fuel in, and we're all sitting in pit lane on the pit limiter, full throttle, trying to burn all the fuel.
Yeah.
So we could fit it in.
Yeah, an LDM car won.
Percat won because but they forgot to put fuel in at the start of the race. So they had more fuel to put in. Because their team forgot to put fuel in the car.
Is that how it worked out? Fuck, that's classic. So a fuck-up actually won in one of the biggest races of the year.
I didn't know that. Fuck, there you go.
Unbelievable. Yeah, they pitted on lap 5 or something because they were out of fuel.
It's like winning a race because you forgot to put the wheels on properly. It rains, it made it quicker for you to change to wets or something, like.
Unreal.
I've now forgot my question.
Would have been a ripper, though.
It must have been
bullshit. I got a question for you, SVG. Favourite sector or section of corners at Adelaide on a push lap? Like, which is your favourite part of the circuit? Do you have one?
The first sector. Like, the first sector is the hardest because it's when you leave pit lane, it's pretty much all right-handers. So you don't get much opportunity to put temp in the right front tyre. You got turn 5, but then you don't have much until the end. And the first corner is this really fast left-hander, and you got to be so accurate not to get a curb hop. So I used to love I'd try and push. So I'd really weave in the first sector, and then I'd try and push from, turn 1 up, turn 9 onwards and try and feel what you got, but you still don't really know. So that moment when you tip into turn 1 and have that uncertainty, is the thing going to turn or not? Then you got to react to it, how it's going to take that curb. And, if you could have that confidence to commit and the thing rotated, it was the best feeling. And then you could nail sector 1 and that would make you lap. That was always the best feeling if you could activate that right front tyre somehow, if you had a good engineer. not a driver. It was the coolest feeling, that first sector on a shootout lap. Like, yeah, it's that's why I always used to love that shootout there. If you could somehow nail it, I think 2018 was my best one when the ZB come out, and I remember I used to go wide at turn 7, and they had that yellow line, and everyone protested. I went out over the yellow line, but I got poled by a big amount. It was one of the best laps I've ever done. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's right. Now they've got the tyre bundle there, don't they? They then put the tyre bundle there.
No, they put a wall there.
That's right. There's a wall there now because it was.
They put a wall there. So the seal was rooted on the race line, but over the curb was really good.
Yeah.
So you'd blow the corner to get on a good seal. But the funny thing was, we like counter protested because I think it was whoever it was protested us for going outside the line. But I think 6 or 7 of the other cars went over the line because the line was painted wrong at the corner before turn 6 over that curb.
Yeah.
Almost every other car off the track there, and they're like, "Oh, we're not going to disallow laps for 8 of the 10 cars," and then they just let it all go. It was amazing. But yeah, the next day the line was moved, and the next year a wall turned up.
Yeah, okay. I remember before that wall because that was like V8 Ute days for me and stuff, and Super 2.
Yeah.
And you used to just blaze over it in the races.
I'm not a big fan of the wall there. Like, I think that's part of the character was the exit curb there.
Well, it's taken away a passing zone as well, which is obviously a negative on a street circuit. So they could have done it a little better, made the curve bigger or a little bit further out the curb maybe, because it was quite narrow on exit there.
Yeah.
If they just shifted the curb 3-4 meters, it would have changed the corner completely, and you would have had a passing zone.
Yeah, true.
Totally agree though. Flying that center chicane on your first like push lap is always like, how's it going to land? Like, am I going to be all right, or am I going to end up in the boonies?
Oh, and there's nothing when you go through the first chicane without the front tire temp and you hit turn 2 with a little bit of lock on, it's horrible. But if you can get through the first one through one and get the lock off before the actual big curb, you know you're on a good lap. You're like, oh, okay, we're on here.
I would always have the moment when you nail turn 1 and 2. You're going through 3 and you're just waiting for the engineer to key up curb hop.
Yeah.
And your lap's ruined. But you'd be, didn't hear anything? Okay, press on. And you look at your delta and you're 10th up or whatever. It's the best feeling. But you get a lot of curb hops too, which is always shit because you never know. Like sometimes I would sky that and your car would fly funny. You'd cut the whole corner and you wouldn't get a curb hop. Oh, beauty. Thank you.
That used to be
it's
Well, I think not that long ago. It was probably like up until like 2016 or whatever. Before then, it was always judge of fact too. It was a marshal sitting there and would just dictate whether you jumped it or not. Because I remember in the Utes.
Must have been a while ago. Ours has been Beacon for a very long time.
Ours has been heard for a while.
Yeah, maybe it was just supports then. Maybe it was only on for supercars. Because I remember
Might have been because of where the beacon has to be, like, the beacon in the car maybe.
I remember judge of fact once done me there and I got my fastest lap deleted.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was front row too. I was
I've had some cars where you can't get through there without hopping, and then you have some cars where it just grips up and pops, and it's like the same at Gold Coast too. Like Gold Coast was just RNG, random number generator. Like some weeks you have an amazing car, some weeks you popping. Like it's pot luck what transponder you have. It's a pretty shitty system, but that's all they have, I guess.
Just go back to bundles. I need to have a wee. Is that okay?
Yeah, I need a piss too.
You'd be due for one, Shane? No?
Yeah, I'll go around the corner. Should we bring up parity?
We should chat about that. One thing, actually, I saw that Scotty Mack must have watched Gold Coast, and we did our debrief from the weekend, and it's cool to hear someone else's perspective. He thought,
are we recording now?
Yeah, I just thought I'd go again. Just keep going, mate. I just came back from the P15S and was ready to roll straight back into it.
Well, were you about to say something sensitive, mate?
Sorry, I'm ready. No, I'm ready now. I'm ready to go.
Well, I'll keep going with the question, mate. Scotty Mack posted on Twitter, I think it was, that he thought the chicanes at Gold Coast were too fast. We talk about Adelaide 500, the chicane there. If you turn the sensors off, people just blaze through there. If you have them on, one thing I hadn't thought about, because I thought the way they managed it was really good at the Gold Coast, but so what they did, if you're not sure, they turned them off pretty much during the race. They left them on they turned them off at turn 2 and turn 9. Turn 9's the big one that kept getting everyone, so it meant you could go through a lot faster.
Yep.
One thing we didn't realise was, which I didn't think about until I read his post, was it took away an overtaking spot down in turn 11, the left off the beach chicane, because he said everyone's going so fast now through the chicane, no one could get a run. And I said to Elliot in our debrief, like, there was not really a lot of overtaking. And it's a track I thought traditionally had good overtaking. But turn 11 was one of them. Do you think, I'm putting you on the spot, you don't have to have an answer. Like, what do you think we could do, though, to help slow the chicanes down, but not have the pot luck, really, of curb hops? Because we don't know in the car where the limit is. That's the shit thing. When the car flies or gets high, sometimes you get away with it, sometimes you don't. But I actually think Scotty made a good point that just making the chicanes faster looked cool, and it was better because practice 1 had 246 curb strikes. So that doesn't work. That looks stupid. But would you go back to, I mean, you don't really want bundles. Do you just put bigger curbs in there that they're self-penalising and that slows them down? What do you reckon we could do? Because even you get to Adelaide, it's going to be another track where if they turn them off in the race, you just blaze. And then turn 4 is no longer an overtaking spot.
So I watched practice 1 live because it was at a decent hour here. And it was a complete joke with all the curb strikes. I think Percat, it was 10 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago, Percat hadn't even done a lap yet.
Yeah.
But I remember as a driver, it was a conversation every year. And they took away the bundles last year because the Gen 3 bumpers can't handle it. So fair enough. But as a driver, you don't know where the limit is. So, yeah, I think they did the right thing by turning the sensors off. The cars look spectacular. Like, that is the best track for a supercar. The way the cars look, bouncing over the curbs, it was freaking awesome to watch. Watching those guys send it in qualifying, it was freaking pretty cool. But until they just watched the front straight and people crossing the line, which was shit. But every time they followed someone on their lap, it was awesome. I really enjoyed watching their qualifying people sending it. But you're right, in the race, it wasn't as good because it was hard to judge and hard for people to get a run because everyone was just straight lining. So I always thought the first chicane could have a bit more of a radius. The first corner you could have out a metre, second corner you could have out a metre. And that would make it more of a corner, more of a braking zone. And to me, that would eliminate a little bit that cutting the chicane like people would do on the first lap. Because I think you did a post, like someone took the piss on lap 1 and gained a spot, then got the spot down the back straight. And people used to do that all the time. But I think if you put a little bit more radius on turn 1, that would be a lot better. But the back straight, I'm not sure what the answer is. We've been to Gold Coast for years, and it's still the same problem every year. No one knows the answer. But, yeah, you could tighten the radiuses up. That would slow it up. That would get rid of the cutting problem. But, as I said, that's the most spectacular part of watching a V8 supercar is jumping those curves.
Yeah.
And, I was watching the race on the plane back from I've lost track of where I raced last week or the week before. And the guy was watching on my shoulder going, holy shit, look at these things. And, the cars are spectacular over the curves. So it's a fine line. You want to change stuff so it's fair for everyone. But visually, you see, it's packed 3 or 4 deep on the back straight of people trying to watch the cars through the chicane. It's unbelievable how good the cars look. But, yeah, every year you go there and it's shit fight and everyone talks about curb strikes. And, you're watching people lose the curb on a shootout lap. A couple of people did it. I'm like, where the hell did they cut and lose an advantage? It's just, it's silly. And it's, it's hard to explain for the casual viewer to understand what's happening because it is the coolest track to watch a V8 supercar drive around.
It is for sure, yeah. And you almost need to consider, because it goes both ways. It looks good. And then for the guy who tunes in and watches a supercar for the first ever time, he'll see the beach chicane and think it's the coolest thing ever. And it does make the clips. Like my biggest clip ever on socials, going back years, was a video of the beach chicane. It was like, it went viral. It was over 1 million views of just me going through the beach chicane. And the people that watched that certainly didn't care that there was less overtaking at turn 11. So what grows the sport more, allowing them to fly through? I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear what people like, whether they want to comment.
I'm surprised you didn't get a copyright strike or a legal letter for posting that.
Oh, mate, I would have got in trouble for sure for posting that.
But yeah, I love Surfers Paradise. That was one of my favorite tracks. I really love the long track, but the short track where they condensed it, the battles we had. I remember the first year it was the short track, the race I had with Jamie and Mark Winterbottom for the lead. It was one of the best races I've ever had, and I lost, but I just have such good memories and, the atmosphere, the the way the cars bounce around, it's the greatest track. So, but yeah, every year, like practice one was a complete joke and it was an embarrassment. But, I don't know what the solution is. We haven't found a way to fix it.
Yeah, that was that race. I remember that one back. That was 2010, I believe, that you and Jamie had a battle.
Yep.
So
SP Tools car, was it? You were still at
was,
Stones, yeah?
yeah, I remember
Yeah, it
that.
was. Yep.
Unbelievable battle. I had come back from the UK, from British Formula Ford, and I was with Team Vodafone in the pit because RD was looking after me and supporting me. And so I was going for them, but I was already quite good mates with you. And I remember on the Sunday night, we had a dinner planned with all our mates. And I'm like, I was so torn in that because I'm like, oh, fuck. It was like my first weekend with Team Vodafone and Triple Eight. I really, really wanted them to win. But that was like I think that was one of the most iconic events, whether like on YouTube or anything, that has been shared. That last like 5 or 6 laps has been shared so much between, I think Jamie ended up winning that day. But it's probably the day where coming second, I don't know, you get caught up in I imagine the race itself outweighs the result in the end of the day because like you led at points, cutting the chicane and then giving it back. It was a pretty special. That was fucking cool, that race. I remember that vividly.
Oh, I remember, and it was perfect. It was a red Holden versus a blue Ford.
Yeah.
And just, that's patriotic. It was a Kiwi versus an Aussie. And yeah, that was like my first, I hadn't won a race at that point. And I remember, like, I hit him at the last corner to get the position anyway. So I probably would have had to give it back. I got it in the wrong way. He really checked me up and I couldn't get off him, bumped him, and we ended up side by side down the front straight. And I replayed that. Like, I still replay it sometimes to this day. I'm like, shit, what could I have done different? And I remember that day I flew back home on the Monday morning to go do Targa in New Zealand. And I remember doing the Targa as a zero car with Dad. And everywhere I went in New Zealand, it was like the hottest thing ever. Like, everyone was talking about it, how good the race was. And it was a really cool, that was like, it was a really big moment for me. But I remember that race just, the buzz and the atmosphere. I think there's a footage of they cut to the garage.
Yeah.
You can see Jimmy Stone or Ross Stone. They're both fist pumping, and like you can see. To me, that's peak. Like that's why you do the sport. That was one of the coolest races I've ever been a part of, and I didn't win the bloody thing.
Actually, it's interesting because we got asked this question last week. Our most memorable race that we didn't win or didn't have a good result. I mean, you finished second that day, so it's still a good result. But that's obviously one of yours, Shane.
Sound check.
Love it.
Good question. Yeah.
That's a hard one. Like, I've had some awesome races this year where I've come fucking 80th or something. And it's been awesome. But if this Bathurst 2019, there was a late race restart. I think it was Scotty Mack's first Bathurst win.
Mm-hmm.
And man, those last couple of laps just hounding him. I was never going to pass him with the aero wash, but we were both on the limit. That was awesome. Probably the most memorable is Bathurst 2016 because that, when Jamie had the crash with Scotty Mack and Garth Tander, and I followed Will Davison across the line, that set up my championship year. That was probably my most memorable, like, bizarre. I think it was actually the closest competitive finish in Bathurst history for a win, but I was third. It was odd. It was odd. I remember those last few laps knowing Jamie had a penalty. It was for the race lead. I'm like, shit, I can win my first Bathurst, but I can guarantee second and get massive championship points. I remember just having this massive internal battle in my head. Like, shit, what am I going to do here? And I could have had some big lunges at the elbow and I pulled out of them. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably my most memorable because I got second and I got huge championship points over Jamie, but I had a Bathurst win right there for the taking that I could have made a crazy move and taken, and I didn't do it. But what means more, championship or Bathurst?
Yeah, exactly.
Lucky you've got a couple of both, mate, so it's all good.
Yeah, fucking show off.
Yeah, but at the time I didn't.
Shane, actually, he's the top.
Oh,
we saw that. He just poured. Don't try and pretend like that didn't happen. You just mentioned, Ford versus Holden back in the day. That was like peak at that Gold Coast 2010. Yep. And we've already talked a bit about, manufacturer involvement in the US and how unbelievably impressive that is and how involved they are. it's constantly a talking point here in Australia is parity. And we've avoided talking about it because I don't really think the conversation itself brings any value. Yeah, but I don't think it brings a lot of value to the sport. I think what we're doing here, regardless of what people think, we're not just shit canning the sport. But parity's come up again because Gold Coast Cam Waters mentioned that he still thinks that the reason they're not competitive at Bathurst is because of parity. I think the category's done more than they've spent so much money now, and I think it is closer than ever. I think my experience, before I pose the question, my experience now is I've driven for a couple of Chev teams in Gen 3, and the balance in the T8 car is, and I experienced it across Bathurst when it wasn't in the window. I was down on Jamie down the straight. We tuned the car up. I'm back in the window and we're quick down the straight. And then I look at what T8's done through Ford or Chev, and they've done such a good job. I think there's more to the conversation than just saying either Supercars isn't doing a good enough job or the tools that Ford have at the moment aren't matching the tools that Chev have. But I'm interested to see what your perspective is on the parity debate, especially, you've been at the forefront of it and now you're spectating. So what are your thoughts on the parity debate here with Ford versus Holden in Supercars, mate?
Chev, yeah.
Well, it's a shit. Yeah, Chev. It's the shit conversation, and it's an ugly word, but yeah, you're on both sides of the fence last year. At the start of the year, they used James Courtney and myself to paritize the cars and drive them and, try and equalize them. And, the cars were very different characteristics in the way they drove. And speaking of Richie Stanaway, who's drove both, they still have those differences, but it's so hard to know. Like, they have spent a lot of money. They've done the right things with the wind tunnel here down the road from where I am. They've done the engine testing, and every single time the Ford is better. They at Tailem Bend last year, where I think it was the Ford got its upgrade. Like, they were stupid fast, but they were so draggy. And then they went to Bathurst. They killed us over the top, but they were slow down the straight. Then I think they got another upgrade, and they had crazy amount of downforce. But it worked out because we had better engines at Chevy, what it felt like. But every single time we went to the dyno this year, I had Kenny Mack stay with us earlier in the year, and like, the Chevy is down on power to the Ford, which is the opposite of what you think. And to be honest, last year the Ford seemed gutless, but on the dyno it shows more power. But yeah, it's an odd one because the Ford wins in every area, but the Chev wins on the track. But it's only because of Triple Eight. When you look at the teams championship order, it's Triple Eight. Where's the next Chev team? So it's an odd one because the top Ford team, you look what they did last week. They put the fuel in the wrong car. Like, are they operating at the same level? It's very hard to know. So for me, the biggest test will be next year. They've spent all this money equalising. Brody is along with George and also Tom. I think he may be going to DJR. I'm not sure. Might not be public yet. Sorry. But
you've just dropped it, so that's cool.
Knowing those guys, yeah, sorry, Tom. But they can take the setup. They know everything they know about the Chevy. They can take it to the Ford. That's going to be the biggest parity equalizer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brody and George and the team, all the good Erebus people in a Ford team. That'll be our answer, because to be honest, does Ford have the best drivers? Chaz is pretty good. Is his team? I don't know. But yeah, it's hard. It's very hard to know, the answer at the moment, because as you have found out this year, Triple Eight is an amazing team. They're levels above. At the moment, it feels like the field. So obviously, that's a biased opinion. I'm in a privileged position, I guess, having driven for them, knowing the people, knowing a little bit what's going on this year. So yeah, next year will be the real test. But obviously, last year at the start of the year, it wasn't very good. The Chevy had a huge advantage, but this year I'm not too sure. So yeah, next year will be the real answer, and it won't cost any money except to DJR, who's paying Brody, I guess, to find out the parity.
Yeah, it's such a difficult conversation, and there's certainly Ford fans out there. And just so everyone listening knows, I grew up in a mad Ford family. My dad was a very avid Dick Johnson racing fan, and yes, I drive for a Chev, but it doesn't you know, the idea of what we do here is we try and be as transparent as possible, which is obviously never like you've always got your own interest. And we found out after Sandown where I was like, nope, I think the full course yellow was great. And the two laps we got to pit was amazing as it turned out.
Yeah.
From a fan's point of view, it's not
As
true.
a fan, I watched Sandown as a fan, and it was the dumbest thing I've ever watched, that full course yellow. Like, that completely killed the racing and the format that they did and how it just helped. If I was in your position, you're selfish.
Yeah.
Because it helps you keep your 1-2, but as a fan, it's completely stupid.
Yeah.
They should close the pits under full course yellow, neutralise the race, and then open it. The way they did it was completely stupid, and it ruined the race. But hopefully they learn from that and do it better in the future.
Yeah, and I think like I had that chat with you. You messaged me straight after. I think you watched the pod and you're like, nope, you're wrong. And then RD messaged me, nope, you're wrong. And
Scott's got rubber arms. We learned that real quick.
it proved that I was like, okay, you cannot be completely unbiased. That's just built into humans, and that's why it was like the broadcasting. I'm sorry, but like we all know that's the thing, and it's because as humans we have our own bias, and that's like if someone upsets you or if we think we have a vested interest in one direction, that's just how we operate.
Unconscious bias.
But one thing I think is worth acknowledging is DJR and Team Penske beat T8 in a Ford, and and then Erebus last year beat T8 in the same equipment. So it's achievable, it's possible. And this year the first Chev team is 6th, and the next, from second to 5th is Ford teams. And I think you have to at some point you got to give credit where it's due. And this isn't like, regardless of what you think my interest is I think when you win the championship as a team, 2 rounds to go, I think rather than blaming a manufacturer or supercars or having a chip on your shoulder in a way, it's important to acknowledge that maybe someone's doing a good job. And that's one thing I've noticed with T8 and some of the meetings they've had where I've been lucky enough to be a part of at the start of the year, is they acknowledge like past references where people had beat them, and all they said was they did a much better job than us in these areas, and this is where we need to improve if we want to compete with them next year.
I'm laughing because you jogged my memory back to something. I remember in 2016, like first year at Triple Eight, I'm all eager, keen, young, doing everything I can to be better. And I remember sitting in debrief with Shippy. I've got all my notes and everything. And the debriefs at Triple Eight at this time, it's normal. They go for 2 hours or whatever. And it was boring as shit, but I'm new, I'm fresh, and I'm like trying to do my best. And I remember, I need to go toilet, and I've gone toilet, come back in, and Lownsy's watching 4-wheelers do flips. He's so bored. And it's just like, I'm just like, what are you doing? Watching 4-wheelers drive down a hill backwards. And then, but like just the attention to detail, all the small things. But on small brains like myself and Lounsey, it goes, but on all the people that matter, it's like everything is like military. Like you talk about the smallest things, like you'll talk about a gear cut or a seatbelt out of place. Like Jamie was amazing at the smallest details, but they would affect him so much, and he was such a perfectionist. The team would spend so much time on the little things to make it get better. Like you're not talking about a spring by 20 newtons or whatever. You're talking about, the preload by half a turn or a quarter of a turn. Like there's the smallest changes on the twin springs or whatever. And it was just eye-opening to me how much attention to detail there was, like at a test day, you'd turn up and there'd be this whole sheet of a run plan. And, previous teams would be like, oh, yeah, well, let's just see how the car is and tune it from there. Like you go to a test day, there's a fully structured plan, minute by minute, almost to the half minute of each plan change. It's attention to detail makes such a difference. And as a driver, in the example I just managed, it's easy to overlook that. But yeah, you see like that structure led from above, which was RD to Dutto, GUI at the time, now JDub, like it filters from above. And it's amazing to see what levels the team operates at.
The one thing you can't really, right now I can't really talk about some of the obvious differences, but you mentioned a test day and the way a test day is run.
It's the first thing you said to me, mate, when you came back.
I couldn't believe it.
You rang me and said, mate, what the fuck have I been dealing with for the last 10 years? Do you know what I mean? Because it was
Well, it
just...
wasn't, and it was sort of like, it's the unknown that's the scary bit. I think, you go to a racetrack and you think you got to try and make the car fast. But the thing with the test days, you're not trying to make the car fast on that day. You want to know your toolbox. And that's what's kind of impressed me this year is you get to a race weekend, and I've learned a lot this year, and I feel like just being a witness to it, I think I didn't realize what, you end up in a bit of a routine of you're doing the wrong thing, but you don't know what the right thing is after a while. You go to a test day with T8, and physically it's a lot more challenging than a normal test day because you're in the car a lot, but you kind of feel, you feel somewhat replaceable because you're in the car as you're just a robot running through their program, give a bit of feedback, but it's really about making sure when they go to Adelaide, this next event, they know what's in the toolbox. And if the driver's battling with something, they've got a clear decision on what to do to make that part of the car better.
It's interesting. Like, I remember Andrew Edwards, who's the guy, like, I think the world of him, how we worked together, but he come from such a different team with Brad Jones. Like, they didn't have the, I guess, use or believe in the simulation that we did. And I remember, like, the first test days, and I think him and Nick Percat, who he worked with previously, had a very different relationship. But like the first test day, we were just like refining little stuff, big changes where they'd try like a huge anti-dive change versus a spring change. We just refine stuff, looking at sim, change stuff 10 newtons, try it. Okay, let's back to back it, go back. Like the swings were just wild. Like we'd believe a lot more in our tools, and I would be very, I'd try and be just the driver. He'd be an engineer, whereas I don't think it worked like that at BJR. It was very different. I remember Eastern Creek. Eastern Creek was our first race together, and we turned up there, and the car just had this understeer in the middle of the corner. Get in good, understeer. Exit was really good, but I just needed more turn in the middle. And like we had our debrief. Like the debriefs, they go for freaking forever. Lounsy's watching backflips on the TV or whatever, but you know what I mean. And we start talking. I'm like, yeah, it's just got understeer in the middle. Just fix the middle only. That's it. And it was like, well, what about the rest of it? Like, no, just fix the middle of the corner. Like, it's advanced but simplified. Like as a driver, your job is just comment on the car. What do you need? Like I don't even know what springs I had in the car. Like I had a rough idea, but I knew what the springs did, but I didn't know what I had. I didn't know what to ask for. And I just say, yeah, I don't know, it doesn't turn in the middle, very stable on entry. I got great power down. I could give a little up, but I don't want to. And you just try and simplify it where, it seemed so simple, whereas other teams would go into so much detail that seemed a little bit unnecessary, in my opinion. And, you just do the simple things right, and then you get further down the track. And I don't know, it was a big adjustment for Andrew, believing in sim tools rather than just driver feedback. And, I think, my debrief was over in 25 seconds rather than 38 minutes with Percat. It was a very, very big difference for him. And it took him a while to get used to that style of how the team worked. It was, it goes off engineering feedback rather than driver feedback a lot more. I don't know if you felt the same this year, but it's very engineering based for me.
Yeah, and that's where, like the test day, you put it really well. I didn't know how to say exactly that with a test day, where I feel like it could be Will in the car or it could be me in the car, and it's kind of like you're just there to run through the program, and you give feedback and they make a note of your feedback. But I remember the first test day where I did ask for some changes. I was like, if it was me, I'd probably look at stiffening the rear spring or trying this. And he was like, okay, Scott, we're just...
Yeah, you don't say that.
And that was my very first run where I was like, I struggle for a little bit of turn, after the apex at 1 on throttle. And this is what I'd probably do if I was to, it was just something so simple where I immediately realized, okay, the idea is you give feedback so that they get some driver feedback on it, but they got their program. And it's definitely an impressive organization. It's something that, and that's where the parity stuff is a good conversation to have, because I think given some perspective on what they're achieving, it's not just because... I don't know. I mean, I can't say too much because immediately you get told that, which is why I did the post the other day on Apex Hunters, just screen recording the championship order. I think that there's a lot of teams that if they and no disrespect to Walkinshaw because it happens easily, but some of the mistakes that happen at Gold Coast, though they don't happen across a year, they compound, and you end up losing the team's championship. I think that Bathurst was a good example. A forward had provisional pole, a forward qualified second, but at the end of the day, it wasn't. They weren't there. So,
how do you think Brodie will go at round 1 next year?
Good.
Yeah. Well,
I've got him for a win round 1.
Win round 1 is what?
So S&P was always their strongest track.
Yeah, and that's
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know. I think very basically, I think he's a good driver and he's got good people going with him, and the team are well resourced as well. So after a test day, I'm sure they'll figure out what they need to do and they'll go be good.
What do you think then? What's your perspective on it?
Where's round 2?
It's a great question, Shane. You're asking questions that we can't answer here, mate.
I don't know. Round 1, Sydney Motorsport Park. I don't know.
Oh, it's Grand Prix, is it?
No, I doubt it. Round 3.
Grand Prix is always March. It's early in the year, so it's got to be second or third round.
Mm.
If it is Grand Prix, what do you think?
He was very good at the Grand Prix. I think by round 2 or 3 he'll win a race. Not the first round. It'll take a bit. He always takes that adjustment period to gel. And
should we put $10 on it?
How many test days they'll stack? Hey?
Should we put tenner on it?
Is that US or Aussie?
No, we're going Aussie, mate.
Aussie,
I can't afford 10 US.
Aussie, mate. Only you can afford US dollars these days.
No, like if it was 5 US, I reckon he'd win a race by the third round.
I'm going first round.
And if I had to bet, I'd guess at the Grand Prix. But
okay.
Yeah, first round's always going to be tough. New team. The team's been struggling. Like, I didn't even know what they qualified. 22nd at Gold Coast. Like, they were in who remembered, who forgot, they were absent. They didn't even feature.
We found out, and this is going to be one hurdle they do have. We did find out there's some things that happened at Gold Coast which weren't in Davo's control because we chose him as the who forgot, and they did make some mistakes with his setup. So there was some things that happened that, and that's where I reckon they're going to have some teething problems. And this is where as well, like, you can say the Ford was slow, but at the end of the day, if a team makes mistakes like that,
yeah,
he's not going to get a win next year at round 1 anyway.
Yeah, but there's a lot of good people at that team. There's a lot of old people I worked with at Stone Brothers, and I know Benny Croak's gone, but Mikey Flynn and a few other guys. Like, there's some really good people at that team. So I'm sure they can still make it happen. And then of course they're taking all the good Erebus people. Who knows? They could hit the ground running. It'll be very interesting to see, and I think that's exciting.
Should we ask SVG some Adelaide predictions?
Yeah, I reckon what we do is, this has been for the listeners. I've had a few, so I just need one more P15S break, and then we're going to get into just some Adelaide 500 predictions.
Yeah,
and then we'll go fan memos.
Yeah, I'm almost.
You're almost what?
I need another beer too. So
when you're ready,
I got to go now.
You need to have a piss. We all have to have a piss. I got another beer. Copy. Sound check. Ooh.
Yeah.
That was a weird...
Like an explosion.
All right, well, I reckon as we roll into the predictions, I'm not bad at the predictions. Elliot is fucking horrific at predicting who's going to do well. So if anyone listening wants to put a bet on someone, don't do it based off what Elliot says. And normally who he picks ends up having a drama. So whoever you do pick, Barbs, condolences to them now.
Shane normally reckons I pick the Wobblers, but anyway.
Yeah, well, you'd pick Denny Hamlin on a road course. I think that's...
He pulled it, for fuck's sake.
I'm trying to bring up... Where do you find the championship standings in this bloody series?
The website's a bit shit. The user experience is no good.
No, the website's terrible.
Well, we've still got some notes from last year, but so I'm going to go into my prediction. So I've picked, one thing I've noticed this year is the first qualifying session of every weekend, Cam seems to qualify really well. Tickford roll out with a strong car and Cam seems to get on top of it quick. So I've picked Cam for pole position on Saturday. And in the podium, I've actually got him hanging on for the win ahead of Brodie and then Brock for P3.
What do you got for Saturday, Shane? Who do you reckon's going to pole? And then give me your top three.
So Saturday, I reckon Waters for pole. Mm. Then I'm going to go Brock for the win.
Oh.
Waters second. Mostert third.
Interesting.
So Brodie's not even going to register, you reckon?
Yeah. No, I'm saving that for Sunday. I got one for Sunday.
Well, I've got Brock for pole on Saturday, and then I've got Brodie, Chaz, Will for top three.
So what happens to Brock on Saturday?
He gets a shit start, I reckon.
No, Brock's a good start. Brock's a good starter now.
Oh, it's just filled in me waters. Clutch is no good. Doesn't bite up. Drops back 2-3 spots.
Loses 4 spots in turn 1. See what I mean about Barbs being shit at predicting what's
Or a sticky wheel nut. I don't know. That's just what I'm feeling in the pit stop.
All right. Sunday. This is where I've got Brody for pole. I've pretty much Gold Coast over. So Brody for pole, Brody for the win, Payne for second, and third for Will. Matty Payne, I feel like, is going to be a bit of a dark horse on Sunday come the Adelaide 500.
What do you got, SVG? Talk us through it.
Okay, I'm going to go Randall for pole. Can do 1 lap.
Yep.
Yep.
And then in the race, I'm going to go Brock for the win. Will for second. Wrap up the championship. And then I'm going to go Slave Dog for third on the retirement tour.
Oh, fuck, that'd be good,
Podium
wouldn't
to podium to sail away in the sunset.
That would be...
I reckon Slatey will jag one.
I would love nothing more than to see that. That would be...
Oh, I'd love that. Slatey's a legend. He's one of the best teammates I had. He was awesome.
The Slade, I've got to race him in the Trans Am stuff. He did the first half of the season and stuff. I've known him for... He's a good dude.
That's a happy Sunday, though. I think that's a feel-good Sunday with Randall getting pole as well. I reckon he'd be so excited he wouldn't turn up for the race.
Oh, he'd fuck the start. He'd leave it in neutral like I did in 15 or whatever it was.
Oh, actually, that happened to Ambrose. When Ambrose was my co-driver at Sandown, he started the race, and we didn't really do many practice starts. And he rolled up to the grid. He was like, no, I'm quite a good starter. And he left it in neutral. Everyone else went, and then he clunked first gear and drove away.
Sure, he's great when it's in gear.
I did that in 2013 when I had all that shit going on. I qualified pole, then I ghost geared it on the start.
Was that before? Was that before or after you had retired?
It was after the first one.
After the first retirement. Oh,
I can't wait to
that place. I mean, there's one thing you can say: they breed winners. They can't hang on to them, but they breed winners.
I love weaving your words. I never said that word, but anyway. You know, I actually got the same legal letter you did, almost word for word.
Did you?
Anyway, carry on. Yeah, it was from the same guy. Is it Sven who owns FBR now?
Yep.
Tickford now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Same
Goes
guy.
around a bit. He's a busy guy.
Anyway,
best paid lawyer in Melbourne.
I reckon he copy and paste it and just changes the name. Anyway.
Maybe actually.
Sunday, I've got pole Brody. I've got first Brody, second Waters, and then third I had Jack LeBrock.
Oh yeah, he hasn't really registered this year. I don't.
Just cars fast.
He can jag one.
Tommy's doing a good job. I think he's due a result. Just sort of throw it in there.
I would like to see Tommy get a result with Jack before the season's out. That would be good.
Who do you think's going to come 24th?
Ooh, that's a great one. I think,
He's just waiting for us to upset someone. He's like, he spent 2 hours sitting here today going on. I'm going to make him offend someone.
It's not last. It's not last. It's second to last.
Going on form.
It's 23rd.
Yeah, 23rd.
Sorry, 23rd. 23rd.
I'm going to say second last is going to be Jackson Evans. I'm going to say last could be Aaron Love.
I didn't care about last. It was second to last. That's just mean, mate.
No, he wanted to upset someone. Elliot came in.
I don't want to upset anyone. I'm just giving my opinion.
I don't want to pick last. Go second last. It's not as mean.
Jackson Evans. Who you got?
You'll learn fast here, Shane. Elliot's the guy that just upsets everyone on this podcast.
Oh yeah, I'm the one that upsets everyone.
Who you got then for second last?
23rd. Who you got?
Who you got, Scott?
Fucking get off the fence, Switzerland.
Jackson Evans wasn't a bad shout.
Now I'm looking at the championship order.
It's got nothing to do with Jackson's ability either.
Bryce Forward.
You got Bryce, really?
Nah, see, I reckon Bryce is going to be like back end of the 10.
Yeah, I would have had him at 11th.
I think you know where win that one.
What do you know, Shane?
Okay.
JC.
I've raced him before.
That's what I mean. What do you know?
I reckon JC. JC I've picked.
JC.
I know.
James is really good at Adelaide.
Yeah, I know, but unfortunately Blanchard, and he's a mate of the pod. He's been on and he's a good dude, but I feel like Gold Coast, they qualified 7th. They had a pretty tough run. And I reckon, I don't know, only takes a bad pit stop at Adelaide and you know where. That's my prediction.
Have we got money on that?
All right.
What about $1 US?
What, 20?
Who you got for 10th, Shane? While we're predicting things.
Was it Saturday or Sunday?
Goes Sunday. 10th's hard to pick because there's a lot that could roll 10th.
David Reynolds.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's good. I got Frosty.
Actually, speaking of a happy Sunday, wouldn't it be great to see Frosty have a top 3?
It would be.
10th.
Yeah, that would be.
10th. Fuck. I'm going to go forward.
Big call, mate.
We had so in the teams championship.
Oh, how do I bring up the team?
Well, really, the one I want to ask you about is between the two forward teams that are second and third in the championship at the moment. Is Tickford is in P2 and third is Walkinshaw. It's pretty close in the teams. Who do you reckon after the Adelaide 500's coming out on top? Walkinshaw or Tickford hanging on?
Tickford.
I'm just looking 4th to 8th is very close.
Yeah.
Really.
In the teams.
And I read about and that's not insignificant. Like, it makes a huge difference when you roll out for qualifying. If you have to, you're losing half a minute, your outlet's compromised.
I reckon,
it does make a big difference. So.
I reckon Erebus will get to 4th in the teams. I reckon if Brody and Jack have a good weekend, if Jack has a good weekend as well and Brody does.
The only thing I would say is, and I'm a big fan of it, the rolling pit lane where it moves now. If you do finish 8th but have a good round 1, you can immediately jump up. Like Erebus hung on to the first garage for one weekend.
Well, Matt Stone went from 5th going into Goldie to they're now 7th in one weekend.
I think what they did with the rolling teams, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Except for BJR, where they group the 4 together.
Yeah.
They should split them up because
they should definitely split
Cool
them.
Drive or whoever, they have to sit behind the second BJR cars for no reason. So they should definitely split BJR up. But I think teams championship has never been talked about this year like it has every other year. It only becomes a thing at Homebush or Newcastle or wherever we finish the championship. Teams championship only becomes a thing at the last round, whereas this year it's been a talking thing. So I think it's been a really good thing for the sport, this moving pit lane. I think they've done well there.
Yeah, I think like Elliot said as well, that one weekend now, especially at the start of the season, you can move DJR, I think one round, Taupo went from 8th or 9th in the championship to 4th. Might have even been, they were last actually at one point in the team's championship, moved up to 4th.
Yeah. When you have those really short qualifying sessions, it affects your day if you're up the back. I remember at Stone Brothers a few times, if we had a bad year, we were stuffed for the whole year. I remember it was when they had the 15-minute qualifying sessions, you could either do it at the start or the end. And it was a risk to do it at the end. You really want to be up the front. So I think it's a great thing, this variable pit lane.
Yeah, I think it makes it far easier for the punter at home too to just see visually how the team's championship's going, because you can just look at pit lane and go, okay, they're second, they're third, rather than having to look it up online and understand what's going on. I think it's heaps better.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, and there's 5 teams within 200 points. That's one race with 2 cars.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, especially a place like Adelaide where it's so easy for one of those cars to have a shit day. There's 150 points down the drain.
It really hasn't been talked about though, actually. It's a good point. We haven't heard much about it, and you're right, because during the race weekend, it's so good for fans to be able to see who moves up and down the order. And now when you just stand in pit lane and look at the order, you can see the championship order. It's so easy to track that it's actually not. Yeah. And even when you go to a race weekend as a competitor, if you've moved down 4 garages or 3 garages, it matters.
Yes. Oh, shit, I got further to walk. Oh, shit, I got further to follow in qualifying. Yeah. It makes a difference.
I think it's nice for the crew too, because if they dominate their pit stops one weekend, they see that result the next weekend by moving up. They don't have to wait the whole next year, so they see the fruits of their labour every weekend. Yeah. I think that makes a difference for the crew too.
Yeah. Positives. Good.
Silver linings, brother.
See, we're so positive here. What's the chance? Oh, hang on, did we actually say which team between Tickford and Walkinshaw is going to come out on top at the end of the weekend? We didn't, did we?
I said Tickford.
You said Tickford. You've got Tickford?
Yeah.
I think Tickford too, and only because of the strength of it, especially if you've got Randall for Sunday pole. I think Randall and Cam is harder to beat than Woody and Chaz.
They got 350 points.
Yeah, they're miles up the road.
They're fine.
Yeah.
That's the gap?
Yeah, They're
Yeah.
fine.
Fuck, I'm nowhere on this pre-brief.
Well, the website might be wrong. I don't know.
Could be.
The battle is 4th to 10th.
Yeah. So
So who's taking 4th then? What's the pick?
I've got Erebus.
I'll tell you what, if Erebus can do that, fantastic
I
job.
go for Penrite.
You got Groves? I've got Groves for 4th.
You two are Groves.
I thought Groves had a big gap to 5th. I thought it was 5th to 8th that was close.
Team Kiwi all the way.
Well, I'm Aussie, so I'm going Erebus. Plus, we all know the Chevs have a massive parity advantage at the moment, so that's all good.
Back to what's about to actually happen, mate. It must feel good to see Andrew Edwards, the engineer on car 87 with Will Brown, looking like he's in for a good shot at winning the championship again. Like, I've been super impressed with him this year, and you're obviously good mates with him as well. How's that been watching a mate of yours now going for the championship?
Well, it's difficult. Like, that's the one thing about America. As I said, I'm pretty sure we said this on the podcast earlier. You forget your intimate little group. Like, you have your engineer, junior engineer, then your 2 mechanics. And over here, it's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger group. And I love those guys last year. And, you know, I had a really difficult year last year, and I didn't enjoy it. But I still loved working with Andrew and Gerard and Mitch on my car. And you miss that intimate sort of appeal, you know.
Yeah.
And it's been great to watch them succeed. And, you know, like, I know I'm not irreplaceable, and I know anyone could jump in that 97 car the last 3 years and do the same job I did. Like, any good driver could have done the same job I did. I was just a lucky guy. And, you know, I know how special Andrew is as an engineer, as a cheerleader, I guess, for that group, and to band the guys together. And yeah, I miss it a lot. But yeah, it's really cool to see those guys do what they've achieved this year with the new driver, and you know, watch them do what they did. And you know, it's as you said to me the other day, it's no secret. I'm trying to get a few of them over to America next year. Like, I know how good those guys are, and I know what an impact they could make in America, and I know how good they could be. So, yeah, I'm trying to get a few of them to come over and work with me here on the 88 next year. It's a pretty cool thing to try and do. But yeah, it's going to be really cool to watch them in a couple of weeks fight for a championship. And yeah, like, I don't feel like I'm missing out, but I feel like it's pretty cool to share that moment with those guys. And we had some pretty special times last few years with Andrew and that team. So yeah, hopefully I really love Brock and that side of the garage, but I'm really hoping the 87 team brings it home, because they're my guys, you know. It's pretty cool.
And it is still the same crew with Mitch
cool.
and J-Rod there as well. It is, you know, and I mean, the one thing that I've loved about TA is, though, that both sides of the garage will help. I mean, a lot of teams are the same, because they spend so much time together, they become genuine mates. And you can definitely tell on a Sunday night when you go out, you don't know which side's 88 and 87. Everyone's dancing to their country music at the Bathurst after party. But I think it is that's the good thing with our sport, is we aren't at 300 or 400 staff. So you do build quite intimate relationships with everyone that works on your car. And then to a lesser extent, but still quite big, like, we're still a team that you can have a personal relationship with every person in the group.
Yeah, like, it's still, like, you have your sides, but I remember, you know, when the championship was won, the whole team was celebrating. It was the only odd point was last year. I remember when all the gear towers were breaking, you know, everyone was gutted. The 888 broke, Brock broke. He was on a chance to maybe catch me for the Bathurst win. And I remember half the garage being divided and we won. But otherwise, every other time, when one car of the team won, it was the most amazing feeling.
Yeah.
You know, 2016 when Craigo and I were racing, or Jamie and I, or Jamie and Craig, whoever won, it didn't matter. The team won. And that's one of the best feelings as a team you can be a part of, going to celebrate your teammate's victory. It's really cool. So yeah, it's interesting. It works very different here in America, how into teams work and how the setups are shared, and they're separate. They still share things, but the teams are very segregated into their own sections. So it's quite different in that regard. It feels like a family in Australia compared to here. So quite interesting.
Good little insight.
It is, definitely. And
Voice memos?
well, yeah, I think so. In terms of an Adelaide pre-brief, probably feel like it's been one of the worst. I feel like in terms of Adelaide preview, this is probably one of the worst. But I think it's been actually a great chat in terms of just.
What do you call it? What do you call the race? What's the race happening at Adelaide?
What's the race happening?
The Adelaide 500.
Yeah, I call it Clipsal still.
So, yeah.
I know, but they don't sponsor anymore. But everyone still calls it Clipsal.
It's hard not to call Gold Coast Indy.
Yeah, I call it Indy still. Yeah,
it is tough because I actually think Velo's doing a good job, but it's always going to be Velo Adelaide 500.
Is it still Velo
This year?
I remember it was Superloop one year, and I can't remember. I just still call it Clipsal internally.
I still reckon that the Adelaide 500 itself is an event that sort of transcends the rest of the year. It's like Bathurst. Doesn't really need... They're these events that are marquee events. And I know I'm from Adelaide, so extremely biased. I'll never change.
It was the best event.
It was one of your favourite events, or?
Oh, it's one of my favourite. It actually was the best pre-season event. But I guess something needed to replace Homebush. Homebush was awesome in 2009, or was it 9 when it first came on?
Yeah,
I think
9.
so, yeah.
But it sort of lost its appeal. But man, the Clipsal as a curtain raiser for the season, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was a cool event. So I think they've done the right thing making it the finish. But yeah, having that marquee Bathurst, Gold Coast, Clipsal, it's some banger events to finish the year. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to finish in a high. And then even talking next year as well is going to be a massive unknown as to who's going to win the championship with this new format. We had a very vocal fan actually send in a 6.5 minute voice memo.
Vocal fan. I can't remember what I said.
It wouldn't. It'd be consistent. The theme would be consistent with this podcast to get off track. But what do you think that? So we need a win and you're in type situation next year is the only thing that this format's missing, because we all agreed in our group chat that the format change is mega. We think they've done a good job there.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not half-assed, but it's almost like not quite there. It's like they need that extra little bit of incentive to give Scafie and Crompo something to really bring home in the commentary box at the end of the year.
Well, I remember when I first joined, it was top 15 only in 2007 scored points. And I remember being in the middle of a battle at Simmons Plains with Murphy, Jason Richards and myself, 3 Kiwis. And we're all battling for 15th for points. And it was a story. Whereas now there's no incentive. Like Bryce Fullwood, absent all year. And then he turned up at Simmons. I think he found himself in second place behind Brock. Like, if he had got a win and got in, that would be a huge story. But there's no incentive for him to make a pass. Like, drivers at the moment are too scared at the moment of officialdom to make that crazy move or try something. Like, you see that odd guy out of a place, they might be complacent to just take the points. And especially with this playoff system now, the playoff system rewards consistency, right? You really need, you get through to the finals, you need to be consistent to make the next round, but there's no incentive to get a good race. So if I'm racing you, we're 1-2 in the points, I'm going to settle for second. I'm not going to race you for the win because I need the points to make through. There's no incentive to win the race anymore, to lock you in. And I found this out in my oval races. I had a bad race at Talladega and my year's over, but I entered the Roval almost in a must-win. Suddenly the pressure's on. If I win, I can get in. You've lost that incentive. So I think the idea is right. They just need to refine it a little bit and add some excitement, which I'm pretty sure what I said in my drunk memos, I haven't listened to them because I was embarrassed by it because I was written and I don't remember sending them to you. But you know what I mean? There's no incentive to win a race anymore.
Yeah.
You've completely taken out getting a result. Everyone now is just going to settle for points because you've made no incentive for people to win the races. And that's what I don't like. I love, but I don't love about NASCAR. Like today's race at Martinsville would have just been, if it was supercars, it would have just been a points grab. Everyone would have rolled around. But you feel that desperation, that you feel in the race, that excitement, that hype. Oh, shit, there's 3 guys that can't make it in on points. They have to win the race. So they're going to do something stupid to try and win it. And it just creates this hype, natural hype around the race, which I feel like supercars is lacking. But I really applaud that they're doing something different to add, like every other sport in the world pretty much has a final system, right? So they're adding that in. And I think it's a good thing, especially over a long season. So, yeah, they need to condense the last 3 events and, having Adelaide, having a shitty 50K race or whatever they're doing on Friday, that means nothing. That could set up the race. That's stupid. They just need to have the 500K race, have it lay over, but you get your start position on the Sunday, you still can race for it. Yeah, I think they can refine the last round to have the winner wins the race. You can still win the Clipsal 500 without winning the championship. You can still have that glory, but they need to put some incentive in it, because I remember in 2007 they went away from it because Brad Jones and Larry Perkins, those teams, they had less points than endurance races, and that looks terrible. So you need some incentives for the lower teams. If someone who's 25th in the championship has a good weekend, they have that incentive to win a race, have a crack, and that'll create some excitement for the commentators. But at the moment, everyone's just points collecting because that's all they need. There's no, you need to create that desperation, and I think that's great as a fan. As a fan watching the race, you want to see that. You want to see someone who's dominated all year, had a bad race. Oh shit, we need to make something happen in the next race. It instantly creates a storyline.
Yeah.
And at the moment, you don't have that, in my opinion.
And it's not too late. Like, it's because it's not a big change. It could be a big change in terms of the end result, but it's actually not a big change in saying that the positions that, especially with that top 10, like if you've had, once you've had X amount of winners, whatever's left over goes to points. But I think that you should prioritise winning, and that's definitely after the 6.5 minutes when I made my notes on your voice memo, because I listened to it, I thought there is some great points there, and you've summed that up very well in about 1.5 minutes today. And I think that it's certainly not too late, but I think there's a lot of value in that, because when someone's dominated, like Will Brown was the good example as well, you don't want to get to a point where he has one DNF and doesn't make it in come Adelaide due to something out of his control. But the win in your in system, like you made a good example with your road course. It's easy for you on a road course, and no disrespect to the other guys in Cup Series or Xfinity even, but you can run top 3 on a road course without too much stress. Like you could do that. And for points, that would be enough. But when you have to win, it changes the game. And all of a sudden the pressure's on, and that's when you'll start to see a cracking finish, where particularly how they do it in America with opening up the rules a little bit to let the drivers escort someone, I think is cool. I think they did a good job today. Today when we're doing this podcast, not today when we put this out, but in the event you've just done in Martinsville, the final was actually quite good, where the last place in the top 4, the guy went down the inside, ran it high and fenced it, and now they've introduced a new rule where that's not allowed, because he ran around the high line, full throttle on like PlayStation style again, and he lost the spot. But we'll see moves like that through desperation. That's going to get clipped again. Like he was flat out again on the high, up on the fence, and it's good for the sport. That's the stuff we want to see.
If I interrupt you, I remember, I might be confused, 2018 or 19, I ended up winning a race at Newcastle. Scotty ran out of fuel. I passed him with a lap to go, and we ended up winning the race, and Scotty and I were dead equal on points. Might have been 1 point, whatever it was. And that night, but we had a penalty for raising the car on jacks with or without fuel, whatever it was. But whoever went into Sunday winning was the champion. And I remember going to bed that night, and I remember the feeling and the pressure, our post-race meeting, and I'm like, how do we make our car better to win on Sunday? And the pressure was like something I'd never felt before. It was 1v1 for the championship. It was amazing. I remember the hype, the social media, the responses on my Facebook, Instagram. It was unbelievable how the interaction were with the fans. It was coming down to one race. Unbelievably, we were on equal points. And then we got a penalty, and I had to finish first, and Scotty had to finish 7th or 10th or something. And it took the wind out of everyone's sails, and it was a shit fight. And it was just like, and we did fuck up. We made a mistake. And, we got the rightful penalty. But I just remember that tension that night.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, tomorrow is the day. And I remember like the fans. I just remember like the hype, and it just built up overnight. And then we got there the next morning, and overnight the penalty came through like 9 a.m. that morning, an hour before qualifying, and everyone just went, like all the balloons just got popped. And I was like, oh, shit. Like no one cared anymore.
Yeah.
It was a weird feeling. And Scotty won, rightfully so. But just that, putting that pressure down to the last race, even though it's years' work, as a fan and a competitor, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was great. So, yeah, I think, as I said, I think supercars are doing the right thing. They could just couple of little tweaks, they could make it better.
Yeah, it's almost like they've tried to toe in the water, and they're kind of still wanting like the traditional championship of points, and then just bringing it down to the final rather than a full playoff system. They're kind of like it's a little intermediate try session versus just going, we're going playoff system.
You can't half-ass it.
No, that's right. And I reckon that's how it feels. And it's like they're trying to do a traditional championship. Oh, and let's just add a bit of a playoff theme to it rather than actually going, we're going playoff styles.
Yeah.
Is kind of how it feels.
Well, I mean, last year in the AFL Grand...
Especially, sorry to interrupt, but especially when you got Bathurst in the playoffs. You can't afford to win all year going to Bathurst and points race. Like, you want to win Bathurst. Like, that's the biggest race of the year. Put some incentive on the win. Like, you can't. It goes back to me 2016. Like, if I had win and you're in, I for sure would have attacked Will for the win. But you're taking that option away by making it a points race. You're taking away the option of making it a good race, just by you got to have a good Sandown, you got to have a good Bathurst. All that pressure is on the co-driver just to mope around in a good position.
I think it's a really good point, especially Bathurst. It's such a marquee event for our championship. It used to be non-championship because it was so important. But it was worth so much value to teams and the championship. They had to make it part of the championship because otherwise the rest of the championship wasn't worth the money they were asking. So I think that you need to make sure people want to win that race.
How would you feel as a co-driver? How would you approach it as a co-driver now?
I mean, my entire approach is to win 2 events of the year. And it would change.
You wouldn't crash on a Thursday, would you?
Zinger. What a dog. I love it.
And thanks. It's been great to have you on the show, Shane. Goodbye.
It's true, though, because how often do you see at Bathurst where a car that maybe isn't always up the front finds itself with 20 laps to go in 3rd or 4th? And to your point, Shane, if they win that and they're in to the finals, they're going to have a go at the elbow. They're going to have a go at the last corner. They're not just going to float around and go, I'll grab a trophy.
Yeah.
Like it would, because Bathurst is a race where you do see through strategy or whatnot over the years, maybe not the last couple of years, but historically, you do find cars on the podium that naturally aren't on the podium that much throughout the year.
Yeah.
I need to drain the main vein.
Go for it, mate. I'm going to do the same.
Again.
I know.
Wow. Jesus.
It's fucking midnight here. I'm ready to go to bed soon.
It's actually this has been on a terrible pre-brief. I feel like it's been the most unstructured
Oh, we've talked absolute rubbish, but it's been fun. You go, Shano. Kick us off, mate.
Beautiful.
Sound check. All right. Into the voice memos.
Hey guys, got a question for you. How can we spice up the racing a bit? Coming off Bathurst to Gold Coast 500, it's a bit ordinary. Basically, follow the leader. What do you reckon? How can we spice it up a bit? Cheers.
Can you take that one, Shane? What's your opinions?
Yeah, well, they both were snoozers. Like I had Dad over here for Bathurst. Qualifying was awesome. Both races, but the races were boring as shit.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. It's definitely more cars. I remember Bathurst having more cars, and then maybe it comes down to what we spoke to before with the incentives for winning. But yeah, the full course yellow numbs everything, and I think the James Courtney, Jack Perkins car learned that the hard way at Bathurst, Sandown. They took a risk, pitted early in the first bit of the race, got stuffed by the safety car. Now everyone just runs long, does the same thing, runs the tank out. It's lighter, it's faster, less risk to the full course yellow. So they've stuffed the racing by those little rules. So yeah, closing the pits under full course yellow, opening it again when it goes to safety car. I think that could be an easy little fix. I think you need the full course yellow because safety first, especially at a track like Bathurst, but they could do things a little better.
Yeah, I think closing the lane. All right, that's a big one, I think.
Yep, with you.
All right. Next one.
Afternoon, gents. Love the show. Finally got my hat and T-shirt, so thank you very much. I'm just curious as to whether you think there should be some sort of award or prize given for, whether it be per race round or at the end of the year, for most overtakes on track, not through strategy. Cheers.
Yep, I reckon yes. You bought a motorbike actually out of Boost Mobile. I just want to say this sums up the difference between you and I, mate. I gave my money to the race team.
Oh, fuck, don't act like
all right,
a player.
You bought a fucking motorbike.
There we go.
Now who's the good guy?
What a spanker.
But Boost Mobile offered an award at Townsville. I passed the most cars on Saturday. I actually passed the most cars on Sunday as well, but they felt bad giving it to me twice. So they gave it to you. What'd you do with your money, Shane, when you passed some cars on Sunday at Townsville that year?
I bought a very cheap KTM.
Kato's, mate, can't beat them.
Yeah. It's the thing that annoyed me is he makes more than me, and I split it between the team. I felt bad, and I gave it to the crew.
The thing with the hard charger award is, it is a shit qualifier award too, isn't it?
It is a little bit. But what do you think? What, do you think there should be an award for a hard charger? I think there should be.
Yes and no. I agree with Elliot. They do the same thing in Australia. In America, for a lot less money. But I get it. I've got it a few times on an oval, and I'm just like, well, I just qualified shit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Is it money?
Doesn't mean much to me, but yeah, it's cold hard cash.
Is it in the US dollars? Fuck. It just annoys me
Just
now.
double every time. Next.
Next.
Hey guys, how you going?
Hang on, I'll replay that one. Here we go.
Hey guys, how you going? Congratulations on the pod. Really love it. On the weekend, Cam was talking about how the Fords still have an aero disparity, but because it's around Gold Coast where there's not as many long straights, they were more competitive. After the Sunday race and your own experience in the Camaros, what's your take on that? Because I personally agree with it. However, I am a biased Ford fan, so I'm looking for outside opinions. Thanks, guys.
We probably covered off parity.
Yeah, we touched on that.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, we covered that.
Yeah. A good question, though, but I think we actually probably jumped ahead on that one for you, mate, and answered that one. So hopefully you got something you're happy with out of the pod.
Hey, guys, Jeff here. Loving what you guys are doing with the pod.
Thanks, Jeff.
A question for Barbs. What does the Trans Am calendar potentially look like for 2025?
How have I gone?
That's last shows, mate. That's
fucking.
What are you running? Like, Shane wants to go to bed. And
having a beer.
You're giving us fucking old questions here. You can tell he's 6 beers deep. You don't know what he's doing, mate. You don't know if he's on an iPad or an iPhone at the moment.
Operator error.
Hey, fellas. Love the pod. I've just finished listening to your Gold Coast wrap-up. And just in response to Scotty talking about maybe doing some potty content on F1 next year. Is there any chance you could wind up maybe your boy Barbs to maybe do a bit of stuff on some good support category racing, whether it be like Super 2, Trans Am, anything like that? I think I've probably lost a bit of interest in supercars and F1 over the years, just with like the lack of relevance to grassroots kind of racing. And you guys sort of talking about supercars has brought a bit more excitement to it for me to be able to get back and sort of start watching and showing some more personality. So, yeah, I thought it'd be cool. If it's not a great idea, just tell me to get fucked. Otherwise, keep it up. Cheers, boys.
Look, we won't tell you to get fucked, mate.
I love it. I feel like everyone's getting the trend of this podcast, though. But
yeah,
what do you reckon? I actually think it'd be good. I love it. He directed at you, but I'm interested in the sports as well still. And I think next year we do need to branch out. I want to do more NASCAR because now we know a full-time Cup Series driver as well. So I would like to do some more of that. But yeah, supports I think would be great to do, wouldn't it, Barbs?
Yeah, sports is sort of my bread and butter. It's where I've lived my whole life. So I sort of know most of the people in there racing and most of the teams and stuff. So I can happily cover off on a bit of support recap if that's what the listeners want.
Yep, let's do it.
Hey, Shane. Hey, whenabouts are you getting back in the sprint car? Are you running at Western Springs this summer or are you going to run anywhere else? Cheers.
Oh, there we go. Short and sharp. What are you doing? Actually, we covered it off. If you want to go back to episode 20...
21.
No, 21.
It's 22, brother.
Yeah. Then we talk about that. But just for this pod, if you missed that one, what is your plan just quickly, mate, over the summer? What are you doing in the sprint car?
Yep, so I'll be running the 97 United Truck Parts sprint car again. So my first one's 14th of December, and then from Boxing Day onwards at the Springs, Bay Park, Waikareca. So yeah, I've got like 6 or 7 races. So yeah, I miss the sprint cars. It'd be good to do it at home.
Very nice.
Yeah, sick.
I still want to have a go. Too soft.
Wow.
Righto, lads. Love the show. Been thinking, right? Gen 3 was supposed to, level the playing field, be a bit exciting because the cars handle like pus compared to Gen 2, create some better racing. But all it's really done, particularly Gold Coast and Bathurst, it's created a bit of Carrera Cup. Boring as batshit.
Yeah.
So do you think it's time we reintroduce some engineering masturbation, but with a few tweaks, of course? Cost cap, so no one team that's full of funds can just blow it out the water. And then maybe with the new season format with sprint, enduro and finals, you only get particular times that you can introduce your upgrades. So, obviously you start the season with what you think you're going to play ball with. Mate, you can't bring in your next upgrade till round 6. Then maybe after the Enduros. So, thoughts, discussion, but unless someone's got a tyre advantage at the moment, strategy is all the same, cars are all the same. Hello, snooze fest.
We did vet these questions too, and I thought that was on trend for this podcast, completely brutally honest. But
this guy sounds as munted as I am, but he is 100% correct. But to be honest, it's right. If you go back to the first press conferences when they said they were introducing paddle shift or what they were doing, I said, this is going to be exactly like Carrera Cup.
Yeah.
All cars are going to be the same. So at the end of Gen 2, you could take all the paint off the cars. You would know what an FPR car was. You would know what a Walkinshaw car is. You'd know what a Triple Eight car is. The cars made speed in different ways.
Yeah.
Now you watch them, you don't know. Like the cars make all the speed in the same ways, and the racing has suffered because of it. So you've lost that engineering freedom. I think they should open it up, but so the steering rack, for example, the steering rack is utter garbage. If you come up with something that was better, but you could sell it for $100 cheaper or $1,000 cheaper, that should go on the market. You have to be able to supply everyone. Everyone could buy that steering rack if they wanted, or if you come up with a better upright and it was cheaper than the control standard one, everyone could buy that.
It's an option.
Parts should be available to everyone, but cheaper than the base model. Like what they have with the steering rack is complete garbage, for example. Stuff like that could be made instantly better, cheaper, which I think FPR did, but in a bad way. And now I don't know where that got to. I remember Waters tested it last year at Gold Coast and smoked us because we all had floppy racks, and he had the best rack and won the race.
It's available now.
They have started to introduce that now for everyone. So it is the racks, they are improving, but I've still heard of Will having issues with steering racks, which I don't remember in the old gen, the steering racks ever being a talking point.
Oh, no. Well, I had it at Techno a couple of times, but I remember the Vision, you'll be able to dig it up with Mostert sitting in the car for the first time at practice one, and you can see him get in his car and he goes, what the fuck's going on here? And you can see him pull the radio button, dig it up, and you can see him talk to his team and go, is this normal? And his rack's like got a stupid amount of play in it before he drives out at Sandown. He's like, this thing's already broken. But anyway, I think there can be things that can be improved for not a lot of money and make things so much better for everyone and basically. So
the only thing I'd say is I don't think cost capping is, I mean, unfortunately there's just teams that do have bigger budgets, and then it ends up being on, you know, they can employ additional staff and things like that. Like one thing that I'd say about Team 18 where I feel really bad for Krusty, my old engineer, is he ends up having to do 5 jobs to what should be 1. And unfortunately that's part of being a small team. There's a lot more that's asked of you. But a cost cap now is not as effective as what, you know, we hear about it in Formula 1, but they're developing components. You know, it's a totally different game. We do have a lot of controlled parts now. So I don't think if the budgets are open as they are, I don't think teams are able to go and develop components anymore. I think it's probably more staffing. And then that comes back to like lifing of components. Like I think that's where the budget is spent a lot. I think cars get quite old and used and uprights and things start to fail. Also setups start to make, you probably don't even, you might not have even been experienced to this, but I know that setups start to make less sense when things get old because shit gets soft, whether it's uprights or chassis and things start to get used. So that's where budget, I think, should be capped.
I think last year we went through 7 steering racks at Tail and Bend. Every time I drove to the pits, I'm like, nah, this one's fucked. And we borrowed one off MSR, and I was like, okay, this one's good.
Right.
You turn left and it would like fall on itself, and right, it would have feeling. And took us borrowing one of a random however many dollar rack to get one that
they're 15, 20 grand.
So quality controls is shit.
Yeah, but quality control shit. So
one thing I discovered about you though was one thing I did discover. Sorry to interrupt, but I did discover your last year. I started to think you were quite sensitive. I thought maybe Shane's.
He's trying to get back at you for having the Thursday crash comment before. He's just been a dog.
I didn't forget that. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, but it's true. Like if the steering's different left and right, it's not a fucking oval. We're going left and right. You need something that feels the same. So like, I think if you should suck it up. If FPR or Tickford can do something cheaper, you go and buy it off them for $500 less and give them the business rather than some random company in Spain whoever making the racks. You know, like I think there's so many things that can do a better job.
Another one.
If SVG was a team owner and could pick 2 drivers to drive for his team, who would they be?
Is it a 2-car or a 3-car?
Go 2-car and just go purely on the current main game drivers, mate, just to make it easy for the fans at home.
Give me 3 cars.
Go 3 cars then.
I'm going 3 cars. I'm going Brock Feeney. I'm going Cam Waters. And I'm going Richie Stanaway.
Nice. Brody's not in the mix.
Brody's not in the mix, no.
Yeah,
okay. I really love Brody, and I reckon he's a talented driver.
Yep.
But I know Brock is amazing. Been up against him for 2 years. And I've raced against Cam, and Cam is, you know, you can see someone when you race against them where they place the car, the amount they move their head. You know, they know their awareness, what they're driving against. You know, Cam is very, very good. And then Richie, if Richie got the right people around him, he can be as good as anyone else. So I believe I could, if I was a team owner, I could place the right people around Richie to give him everything he needed. So that would be my 3 drivers.
I like that.
I agree with those 3, mate. Like, yeah.
I really like that. That was one question when that came through. That came through from Kendrick Louis, who's actually an amazing athlete, does the Ironmans and everything himself. But when I saw that question come through, I thought,
That's a good question.
Yeah, I like that one.
Should we wrap it up on that question?
Well, actually, there were some written ones.
Do a
couple written ones, and then we'll wrap it up because I felt bad. There's a few people that messaged and said they didn't like sending in voice messages because they.
I'm good for a few more. Cool. I don't like voice messages either. They've fucking scarred me for the last few weeks.
Just keep in mind, if you want to drop in any more Thursday insults of me crashing, I've got about 5 minutes left of that voice message, and it could come to light. So just be very fucking careful what you say from here on in.
So here's a fan question written. Would SVG consider doing a wild card at Adelaide and bringing a driver over for it too, i.e. Larson?
I wouldn't. But I'd love to see how a Kyle Busch or a Kyle Larson would go. But I wouldn't do it myself because I know how difficult it would be to jump in, end of the season, try and get a result.
Yeah.
Like, you got no chance against these guys. Like, the supercar guys are very, very good.
Yeah.
But I would love to see how those guys would go. You know.
Yep.
If they came anything better than last, it would be an awesome achievement. I don't think they would come last, but how far up? That would be a great question, and I'd love to find out. So
I would like to see
next year we find out.
I would love to see Larson do it, and the category release some restrictions on testing because I mean, if he comes in and does well, there's no shame. I don't think. I think he's not. I don't see him winning, even if he did 10 test days. But what happened with the guys that came and did the Bathurst 1000? They got the one test day at Winton.
No shit.
For 2 drivers, they had to share it, and it was terrible. And I felt bad for them. They were 5 seconds a lap off the pace, and they were much better than that. I think Adelaide's a taller ask than even going to Bathurst to be competitive because the field spread's less, so you could be last and not be that bad.
Yeah, 2 seconds off at worst case.
Yeah.
If you're doing a shocking job.
So I think that, I'd love to see a Larson come out and have a crack.
It's difficult because I think Kyle Busch was going to have a day at the Bend or something right before Adelaide. It's not relative. Like, it's a completely different track. Like, you need 2 days at Queensland Raceway or 2 days at Malala or something with some consequence for going off. And I don't see him turning up and doing a good job because you don't have that at the Bend. So I think next year they've made 2 weeks between the gaps on purpose,
right,
for someone to have a go. Man, I'd love to see it happen for a quality driver, but as I said, you have to respect the quality of both people. I have no idea how one would go with proper preparation, but it'd be very interesting to see.
Because a couple of teams, mate, over there have older supercars they use for flat track testing or for circuit testing, right? So are they doing many miles in them? Like, would it be, I know that it's not the Gen 3 cars, but does that help or not, you reckon?
No, so actually my crew chief this weekend was Andrew Dickerson, and he used to work for Terry Wyhoon.
Yep.
And there's an old Terry Wyhoon Super 2 car at RCR, and I think they use it once or twice a year at Virginia Raceway, just up the road, but I don't think it's as relative anymore to the current supercar. To the NASCAR maybe, but not supercar.
Okay. Another question for Shane. Which Aussie track besides Bathurst would he want to bring NASCAR to and why? So if NASCAR could come and do a feature. Yeah, okay.
Pukekohe.
Yeah, somewhere in New Zealand, just so I can race at home.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. Auckland City. Make a street track.
Fuck, wouldn't that be
right cool? Around the viaduct, and then we
wouldn't
can
that be cool?
Get out and walk to Danny Doolan's.
Go. Yeah, who gives a shit what the result is? Go to Danny Doolan's and everyone get tipped up. But actually, it wouldn't take much to bring back Pukekohe. From what I hear and what I see, you could easily make that a track again and put on a show. Hampton Downs is great, but Pukekohe was the ultimate.
Yeah.
But,
I love that place.
Mexico next year, so who knows?
Mate,
Pukekohe was an amazing.
I reckon a couple of years' time, if you can keep doing what you're doing, it's probably not out of the question.
Pookie's one of my favourite tracks of all time.
Yeah.
Sound check.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Okay, here's a question. It's kind of funny. SVG use your call sign, your initials as your call sign? Is that the first in NASCAR to use the driver initials? And if he is asked, would he be part of the planned Days of Thunder 2 film, or would he more likely sign on for Talladega Nights 2? I'm seeing you as Talladega Nights 2, brother.
To be honest, the Days of Thunder barn is not far from my house now.
We've got to go.
We've got to go. I've got to go there. So Days of Thunder or Talladega Nights 2, mate? What are you starring in?
He's rich now. They'd use his actual house and put him in Talladega Nights for sure.
No, they would not. My house isn't that big compared to Ricky Bobby's house is like 10 times the size of mine.
Ricky Bobby is your manager's house.
Actually, Talladega Nights 2 would be more relevant than Days of Thunder 1.
Yeah. One more written question for you, mate. And I've actually been asked this a couple of times from punters. Looking like he has cut some weight, what have you been doing? You've been training any harder this year, mate, or is it just because you're racing more often? How have you shed a couple of kgs? Because we know you're drinking plenty of piss, so how are you doing it?
Yeah. As I'm having a beer. No, bloody American food is bad. Like, American food is shit, really. So, thankfully, some friends, we signed up. There's 4 of us. We signed up to a 1,000-kilometre running challenge, which equals just under 3 kilometres a day, which doesn't sound like much, but you can get behind pretty easy. So, yeah, I've been trying to get to 1,000 kilometres. So I'm a month away. I think I've got 100 Ks to go or something. I'm well ahead of target. And, yeah, it's just trickling along. It was something to keep me fit. A couple of other friends, I think my mate Ben, he gave up at 300 Ks. So the bet we had was as many Ks as you were under 1,000 was how many Ks you had to put on the bar at the end of the year. We always have a do.
Oh, that's a good.
Me and my friends, we have our derby, and then we have a piss up at Waiheke every year, and it gets expensive. Scotty's come a couple of times.
Yeah, I've paid some penalties at Waiheke.
Penalties. Well, so this year the amount of Ks you're short of the 1,000 is how many dollars you got to put on the bar. So, yeah, I'm going to make 1,000, but it's honestly been a good goal. Keep me trim and keep me active, trying to trickle along the 20 Ks a week to make 1,000 K for the year.
Yeah, nice. I like it, mate. That's the written questions, I think, that are relevant to the...
I think we're done. That's been... For anyone heading to the Adelaide 500 or willing to place a bet on the Adelaide 500 after this podcast, you'll have absolutely no idea who to bet on or what's happening at the Adelaide 500. But
don't take our advice.
But I feel like it's been a long time since we've been able to chat for certainly for 3 hours. But
it's been a good catch.
Adelaide 500. My money is on Will hanging on, like you said. He's going to have to remind himself why he's going into the championship, into the last round with a 180-point lead. And I think that, he just needs a solid Saturday and he'll get it done. But certainly Brock is going to be hanging in there. Thanks a lot for the fan memos and questions. There is a lot to get to. Elliot and I are going to start doing the odd fan memo pod because there's been, every day, literally every single day we have fan memos come through. Yep. And I always listen to them, and some of them
Should we do some more after this?
What's that? Sorry, mate?
Should we do some more?
Yeah, I'd love to.
I need a piss. Yeah, I'll do some more.
We've still got some more there.
We got more there?
Well, keep going then. I'll do it.
All right. I'm going to have a piss while SVG as well.
As long as I can take my 5th piss break, then let's carry on. All right, let's do it. Well, thank you for staying on. It's been, like I said, to Barbs and yourself, we do get these every day, so appreciate the extra effort to stay on for a little bit longer. Here's another one, another voice memo.
G'day, Shane, Elliot and Scotty on the Apex Hunters podcast. My name is Stephen, and I've been a long-time listener of the show. My question for you today is, do you think supercars should implement a form of success ballast? Ooh. That's all, thanks.
Thanks, Stephen. Good question, mate.
Thanks, mate. No, I don't think – I hate the whole success ballast because we've talked about co-driver weight a bit lately, Shane, and how it's a bit of a challenge where there's some co-drivers underweight, but then you always want to make sure at the end of the day the main guys are on the same weight. I want to see the real racing, but What do you think? You've done some GT stuff, BOP and all that jazz. What do you think about Success Ballast, mate? What's your opinion?
I think it's a hard one, right? Because Richie had a good advantage last year, as Todd Hazelwood did this year. But the main drivers finished the race, and that's what matters. The one that took the piss was Triple Eight with Cooper Murray, and they signed up Craig Lowndes as the main driver.
Yeah.
That's what took the piss, when obviously Cooper was going to be the main driver. So I think it equals itself out, but you got to stop what happened with the Triple Eight happening.
Yeah, I think that's the issue as well, especially when you can nominate who qualifies. But anyway.
Shane, nice work.
Sorry, mate, I played one over the top of you. Go on, Shane. What are you saying there?
No, just cut it.
Carry on. Nothing gets cut. That's going in.
That's the problem here.
Shane, nice work on the 12th place on the ovals in the Cup car, mate. Really great to see you making progress on learning the ovals, especially in the Cup car. Quick question regarding the differences between the drivers in NASCAR versus supercars. Not in terms of who's better or anything like that. We know it's just different. But in terms of how they behave, the drivers in NASCAR are more aggressive? Do they not tend to be as passive as supercars, for example, where a lot of the time people just didn't want to race you that much? What's the big difference between the drivers and their attitudes in supercars compared to NASCAR, and what's been the biggest culture shock in that regard? Keep up the great work.
Thanks, sir. Good question.
Good timing. Martinsville yesterday, Parker Kligerman ran into me like 10 laps in a row, just smashing me in the left rear quarter, trying to move me out of the way. I let him past. I smashed him out of the way, got back through. Then he's whacking me. And, like, in Australia, you just get wound up and off each other. And then the yellow come out when I got back in front. I did the thumbs up. He drove back beside me and, like, give me the shuckers, you know. And, like, it's like, oh, yeah, it's cool racing. And we were racing for 8th or whatever at that point. And it's just, yeah, you learn to know who's around you, who you can respect, and who's going to be hard to race against. You know, there's like drivers in Xfinity Series I couldn't do that with. But with Parky, you know, it's going to go both ways, and it's just a tough race. But, yeah, in Australia, if that shit happened, it would be 5-second, 10-second drive-through sort of shit, you know. So you can kind of get away with it. But the thing is, if Parker and I got into it, next week we're going to be racing against each other in Phoenix.
Yeah.
You know, it's tit for tat and it pays back.
Do you think supercars need to let that stuff fly a little bit more, or does it get to a point where it's unregulated and it gets too messy?
No, I don't think supercars can have that because you don't race enough and the cars aren't disposable like they are in NASCAR.
But
certainly you need something to let the drivers race more and have incentive to race harder. You know, you don't want to see guys junking each other because that's not right either. But you want to see something that allows people to race and bump and get away with it and, you know, damage each other front to rear. But you don't want to see someone put the fence.
Yeah.
I think that's too far, but you want to allow a little bit more because respect goes both ways and it does equal each other out. But, yeah, you don't want to ride off a car because you can't do that in Australia.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. In Australia, we have such an emphasis on the car and the chassis, and we're over there. As you said, the chassis are disposable, and it's more the other stuff that bolts on it they really care about, like the engines and things like that. So it's more of a speedway mentality, I guess, where the chassis is the cheap part of it, and then everything else that hangs off it, and the people that build it are the expensive item. Where here we're like, the car is everything, don't damage the car.
I've probably driven, the most I've driven a chassis in Xfinity is 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad. You get attached to your cars. Like Will's this year is called Rhonda. It's in a way, you get to the end of the year and your car is the one that won the championship.
What a shit name. How do you come up with Rhonda?
What was yours? Chastity or some shit, wasn't it? Was that yours?
Chastity, 2 eyes.
I heard it was called that after he got a missus, but anyway.
Zinger.
What do you got next?
All right, do you want to do one more and then call it?
All right.
Roulette.
Make it a good one.
I don't know who this is.
Hey boys, long time listener from New Zealand. Question for all three of you. When it comes time for next year's Enduro season, do you think it'd be a good idea to, have a couple of other wildcard entries where it's former drivers team up? For example, we could see the likes of yourself, SVG, and Scotty Mac team up for a wildcard entry. Just your thoughts on how that could go.
Mate, the fans would love to see a Scotty Mac SVG lineup.
Can I just quickly jump in for you to SVG? And I think you touched on it earlier. Or maybe
sounds like he's going to anyway,
the other
Shane,
pod.
so go ahead, Elliot.
Wow. I think there needs to be more cars in the 1,000 to add spice for when shit's going on. Like you look back to the days when privateers were around. I know we've debated about this a little bit, Scotty. And the leaders are lapping people. It just adds an element of entertainment, especially when it's a snoozer. And I think the way that our races have been lately, it would probably add a bit of excitement versus more drama, So.
I've come around on it a bit because after watching the charter thing, I know some people criticise the guy, but like you said, if you were to come back for one race weekend, it's not easy. If you were to just turn up at the Adelaide 500 and try and win, Shane Van Gisbergen more than likely wouldn't win. And it's no disrespect to you. It's just how tough this championship is. So when a Matt Charter turns up and tries to do the Bathurst 1000, it's fucking hard. But it offered that car was pretty much the only opportunity all day there was for a potential safety car or TV time for entertainment. So I think if you had a number of those, yes, they interfere with the outcome of the race, but at the end of the day, without them, the race is boring and a guy sitting on the couch is not going to appreciate what you said earlier, which is a battle to the flag between Brock Feeney and Brodie. They just don't appreciate it. So I reckon more cars on the grid is definitely a positive for the championship.
Yep, I agree. But how about this? Bring back, if you wanted to, if you were out of the championship fight, you'd team up your main drivers again like you used to. I would be all for that, teaming up main drivers. They banned that rule just because Jamie and Craig won it 3 years in a row. I would let drivers pair up against each other again and create that storyline with the second car and then the privateers. But if I change it back to the 12-hour, right, in 12-hour in 2014, 15, 16, you had all these lower class cars and the race was epic. You had the traffic, you had the variability within the race. Nowadays, GT3 cars, they just follow each other around. It's boring as shit.
Yeah.
It's just like the 1000.
Yeah.
The race has gone GT3, full professional, and it's boring as bad shit. It's an awesome race. Qualifying's awesome, but the race sucks. And the 1000's getting the same. If you went back 15, 20 years ago when you had the privateer coming in, you had the storylines, you had the pro drivers, the mains pairing up together or they split them. I think they need to get back to that. And you need to make Super 2 with the same cars, and the Super 2 guys have the option to just do a little upgrade to their cars and they're welcome into the main race, for not much extra cost to upgrade their cars. The pit crew gets expensive, the fuel towers, whatever. Well, now they're going to fuel churns. That's achievable. Super 2 should be able to jump up to that non-championship weekend and jump in for a race. And if you got up to mid-30s, 40 cars, you have a lot more race happening. Now when you have, what did we have this year? 25 cars, 26 cars?
5, yeah.
Yeah, and they're all run by professional teams. There's no safety cars. Nothing happened until lap 130, It's the same shit. So you need to not manufacture it, but you need to create some variability in the race to make it exciting, I think.
Yeah, to your point, mate, class racing, when there's classes among a field, like what the 12-hour used to be and things like that.
Storyline.
But there's always a car passing someone.
Yeah.
Because a car might be 30K slower down the straight than another, and there's passing or there's something happening. And even if it's not an exciting pass, there's still stuff happening that the punter watching, there's stuff to watch. And there's also chances for fuck-ups and variabilities and things like that, like you're saying. So
the whole 12 hours is a storyline.
Well, the hardest race I've probably ever done was when I did the KTM GT4 at the 12-hour, because we were so slow. We were really fast across the top because the thing had good grip, but it just had no motor. And like trying to do that race and you're in your mirror the whole time because you got GT3s catching you all the time. Like it was probably one of the hardest races because you got to watch what you're doing plus everyone else. And it was like, it was good fun, and it was hard.
I remember my first two Bathursts. 07, 08, and I was teamed with my co-driver. 07 was Team Kiwi, 08 was Stone Brothers, and we had just split the cars. There was like shit going everywhere. You had to know when a co-driver was in, and the speed was different. 09, Alex Davison and I, we did like a split livery, and we run up front all day. There was no storyline. And then I think it was 2010 they split. You had to split everyone, and it just made it like a standard race. You know, I remember those first few years, like cars were coming and going all day, and you had to really strategize when you would put your co-driver in, and it made for such talking points. And, you know, they took it away by splitting the A and B drivers. And then this year they completely stuffed it up by saying the main driver had to start. But you understand it for TV, but it completely ruined the race because everyone just did the same shit. So, yeah, you need to bring back that. You need to bring back that roll of the dice, do some different shit.
I've been so anti having more cars on the grid. And I don't know why. I think it's just like a bee in my bonnet where I feel like even, you know, Formula One and NASCAR, every category, there's got to be a pinnacle and it's got to be hard to get there. But then at the same time, it's getting to the point where this year, the race, there's too many teams and too many drivers that are too good. And we're not seeing any mistakes. And then the race, I mean, the one thing that I take away from the weekend at Bathurst is I never saw another car that I was competing against.
It was a practice session.
And that's wild.
Same with me last year. I won the race. It was the most boring race I've ever done, and I won Bathurst, the biggest race of the year.
Yeah.
And I was bored.
And that's what's made me think, and I've sat back now through probably 5 podcasts of me and Elliot debating, going, well, there should be 35 cars on the grid. And I've always said, well, yeah, but at some point it's got to be the pinnacle. And I think if you restrict the numbers, it makes it. But that's for the championship.
Yeah.
For Bathurst, I am coming around on the fact that we should have some Super 2 guys come into the championship. And Matt Charter, I think, was actually a good addition because if you had 10 or 15 of those guys that did introduce the odd safety car, or I mean, he had merit in being there. And I mean, Brad Vaughan as well, who's in the car with him, is a great Super 2 driver. He's actually
won races, so
right at the top of the championship. So he deserves to be on the grid, and there was no seat for him to be on the grid. So it's like, well, there's an opportunity for him to come in. And that's where the Charter family did well, like putting their balls on the line to bring a car in. But if you have 10 or 15 of those, there's the chance there might be the odd safety car or issue in the pit or things like that bunch the field back up. We may actually see a better race at the end of the day because of those guys. And it's not false, but what it does, it's almost like bringing in your stage wins. You bunch the field back up because going 125 laps with no safety cars, I'm sorry, but it's not. You can be an avid fan and appreciate the effort the drivers put in at the end of the day, but it's not exciting.
The race started and I was off supercars, you know, because obvious reasons, but my dad is a diehard supercars fan and a Ford fan. And when the race started, 10 p.m. here in the States, and it's like, lap 30. But it becomes obvious with full course yellow rules, nothing happening. Everyone was just waiting for the fuel window. There was only 2 laps difference between pitting. And it got to like lap 50, and there's like, shit, it's quite boring, isn't it? Nothing's happening. And it's a shame because he's a diehard, watched it all his life, like so many supercars fans have, and nothing's happening. Like Bathurst, there used to be shit happening all day, as I said. So it doesn't take much to put it back to how it was. Like but it's hard with how expensive these cars are for whatever it costs the Charter family to do that race.
Yeah.
There's only one person, how much money? So it's very expensive, but I don't think it would be too hard to bring it back to how it was, invite these people in and have that crossover between a Super 2 team crossing up to the main game and doing that race. But yeah, it's a real shame that I remember 2020, how exciting that race was, how tense it was the whole time. 2021 when Chaz won, how tense it was. And then the last 2 years, unfortunately, it's been a snoozer. So need to bring it back somehow.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think something's got to be done.
Snoozing is good when you're the winner, but
yeah,
as I've been a winner and then a fan the next year, being it as a fan, it freaking sucks.
It's like saying
I went to bed. Yeah, I went to bed not knowing the result. I woke up, watched the race on replay, and made sure I didn't know the result and everything, and then fast forwarded the 100 laps. Nothing happened. It was so gutting.
Let's call it there, mate. She's been an amazing 3 hours, 40 minutes. I'm looking at the screen there with you. It's been good. I'm due for like the 7th or 8th piss break, so it's time to wrap this podcast up. It's been a terrible Adelaide 500 pre-brief. But yeah, thanks for...
Triple Eight fans, 87 fans.
I love that when we mentioned how many memos we get coming through the emails and things that you were happy to stick on. We've done an extra like 40 minutes here just because of that. So thank you for staying on. Thanks to everyone that listens to these podcasts and sends us the voice memos, comments. If you have any feedback on the last 2 podcasts.
Yeah.
Very disappointing. Be more controversial.
SVG wants more action. And if you are going to Adelaide, I'm just going to selfish plug here. We're selling the shirts that I mentioned on the other show. Come see me down at my shed, have a chat. Say good day, buy a shirt.
Yeah.
I'll send you yours, SVG. I'll send it in the post, mate.
Good night.
Thank you.